Welcome back, Night Dwellers. Before we begin, make sure you're somewhere quiet, somewhere dark, and somewhere safe. Hit subscribe and let us know where and when you're watching from. Now, let the story begin. The Red Room. I found the website by accident. It was buried on an old forum, one of those half-dead threads from the early 2000s with pixelated avatars and usernames like Neon Ghost and Shadowman42. The post was simple: whatever you do, don't click the Red Room link after midnight. It included a link, of course. A dead one. Except it wasn't. The first time I clicked it, nothing happened. Just a black screen with a blinking red dot in the center. No text, no back button, no way to close the tab. I had to restart my laptop to get out of it. I thought it was a prank, until it came back. The next morning, when I opened my browser, the Red Room was there again. The same black background, the same red dot. Only this time, there was a message. You were warned. I tried to delete my history, clear the cache, run antivirus. Nothing worked. The Red Room kept opening on its own. Every day, it stayed up a little longer. The dot got bigger, brighter, like it was pulsing, like it was alive. At night, I started hearing whispers, not from the screen, from inside the room, from the walls. I lived alone. At first, I thought it was in my head, just anxiety from lack of sleep. But then the light bulbs started blowing out one by one, and my mirrors began to fog over without steam. And in that fog, I saw shapes standing behind me, watching, always watching. I stopped using my laptop, bought a new one. Didn't matter. The Red Room came back, always midnight, always silent, until the fifth night. That's when the dot vanished, and a door appeared, red, slightly ajar, a soft glow leaking out like candlelight, and then the message, enter? I closed the lid, unplugged it, took the battery out, and still at 12:01 I woke to find the glow from the laptop filling my room. The screen open, the door wider, waiting. I called my friend Malik, told him everything. He laughed at first, then offered to stay the night, said we'd burn the thing if it helped. That evening, we drank, played cards, talked about anything else, until midnight. When the laptop turned itself on, the glow filled the room, the Red Room opened. We stared, neither of us spoke. Then Malik leaned closer. What's that? On the screen, a figure was walking through the red-lit hallway. Small, distant, getting closer and closer, until it was standing right in front of the camera. Face pale and flickering, eyes black, smile wide and wrong. Malik slammed the lid shut and the lights went out. All of them. The apartment was silent. Then, tap, tap, tap. On the front door, Malik turned toward it, but I stopped him. Don't, I whispered. The tapping continued. Then a new sound. Typing. From the laptop, I opened it slowly. The Red Room was still there, but the figure was gone. In its place, a blinking cursor beneath a new message. You brought him. We didn't sleep. When the sun rose, Malik left, said he didn't feel right. I never saw him again. His number went dead. His apartment was empty, vanished like he'd never existed. I tried destroying the laptop, took a hammer to it, smashed the screen, bent the casing until sparks flew out. The next night, it was back on my desk, fully intact. The door opened wider than ever. Inside, I could see movement, shadows pacing, clawing at the walls. The whispers returned. They never stopped, even during the day. Always saying the same thing, it's your turn. I moved, different city, changed my name, threw the laptop in a river. I thought it was over. But tonight, as I write this, my new phone just lit up. I didn't touch it. There's a notification. A website is opened in the browser. Black background, red dot, blinking, and the words, "The Red Room never closes." The third floor of the Amberlight Motel was supposed to be closed. That's what the manager told me when I checked in. He was a heavy-set man with thinning hair and a look in his eyes like he hadn't slept properly in a decade. He handed me the key to room 210 and warned, "Don't go up to the third floor. Power's out up there. Whole level's shut down." I wasn't planning on it. I was just passing through town, one night on the road, trying to get some distance between myself and the city where everything went wrong. I didn't need much, just a bed, a lock on the door, and something stronger than tap water in my cup. The first night was quiet until 3:13 a.m. I woke to footsteps above me. Slow, heavy, deliberate. I sat up in bed, confused. I remembered what the manager said. There wasn't supposed to be anyone above me. And yet the footsteps continued, pacing back and forth across the ceiling. Then I heard dragging, like something heavy was being pulled across the floor. I tried to go back to sleep, but it was impossible. The next morning, I mentioned it at the front desk. The manager looked up from his paper, grimaced. "Room 313, he muttered, then caught himself and shook his head. "Never mind. It's just old plumbing. Pipes knock at night." Those weren't pipes. I knew that sound. It had rhythm. It had weight. It was someone walking. The second night, I stayed up. I sat in the dark, TV off, watching the ceiling. Sure enough, at exactly 3:13 a.m., the footsteps began. But this time they didn't just pace. They stopped right above me, and then knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks from the ceiling. I didn't move, didn't breathe. And from the silence that followed, I could hear breathing, not mine. Someone else's. Shallow, wet, right above me. The next morning, I asked the maid if anyone had a key to room 313. She looked startled. "That room's sealed. Hasn't been opened in years." "Why?" She hesitated. "Some girl, long time ago. She rented it for one night. They found her in the bathtub the next morning. Said she'd clawed at the walls so hard her fingers broke. No sign of anyone else being there, but they closed the floor after that." "What was her name?" The maid looked away. "Doesn't matter. She's not the one knocking." That night, I made the mistake of going upstairs. I don't know what drove me. Curiosity, maybe. Maybe something worse. But around midnight, I crept past the front desk, up the stairwell, and onto the 3rd floor. The hallway lights were out. The carpet smelled like mildew and dust. All the doors were shut, except one. Room 313. It was open a crack, a sliver of dark beyond, and a faint whisper, "Come in." I should have left, run back to my room, packed my bags, and never looked back. But I pushed the door open. Inside, the room was in perfect condition. Bed made, lamp on, mirror polished. But the air was cold, wrong cold, the kind that sinks into your teeth and makes your bones ache. I stepped inside. The door shut behind me. I spun, heart racing, but no one was there. The window was nailed shut, the bathroom door slightly ajar, and from within, the sound of water dripping. I reached out, opened the door, and saw the tub full of dark water. Something floated in it. Hair, pale skin, eyes open and staring up at me. I stumbled back, hit the wall, the lights flickered, the body in the tub sat up, water spilling onto the floor. She pointed at me with broken fingers. "You're in my room." I ran. Didn't stop until I was back in my bed, heart racing, covers pulled to my chin like a child hiding from a nightmare. But I wasn't asleep, and the nightmare wasn't over, because at 3:13 a.m. I heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. Only this time, it came from my door. I left at sunrise. Didn't bother checking out, just drove until the motel was miles behind me. But I keep hearing the knocks, different places now, hotel rooms, friends' guest rooms, even in my apartment. Always at 3:13 a.m., always 3 knocks, and sometimes when I open the door, there's water on the floor. Echoes from the deep. Lena had always been afraid of the ocean. Even as a kid, she avoided beaches, aquariums, even deep bathtubs. She didn't like not knowing what was beneath her. That vast blackness, cold and ancient, hiding things with too many teeth. Her friends teased her for it. Her family called it irrational. But she knew. She knew something waited down there. So when she took the research internship on the Oceanus Deep Sea Observation Platform, it was supposed to be an act of defiance, a way to prove she wasn't afraid anymore. She told herself she was just facing a fear, exposing the ghost in the dark so it could finally disappear. But it didn't disappear. It woke up. The Oceanus platform floated 50 miles off the coast. It was a strange, skeletal thing, an abandoned oil rig retrofitted with labs and living quarters, perched on steel legs that plunged straight into the abyss. Only 6 people lived on board at any time, a rotating staff of scientists, divers, and technicians. Lena was one of the youngest, still in university, still pretending not to be afraid. The first week was uneventful. She cataloged sonar readings, logged deep-sea audio feeds, ran corrosion tests on steel samples, but every night she would lie awake and listen, because the rig hummed, not the kind of hum you'd expect from generators or wind. This was low, resonant, alive, like something enormous was groaning beneath them, straining upward. The others didn't talk about it, but Lena saw it in their eyes. They all heard it, and they were all pretending not to. On day 8, the dive team brought something back. They weren't supposed to bring back anything. The mission was observation only, non-intrusive. The ocean was too unpredictable, and there were regulations about deep-sea disturbance. But Dr. Morrow, the lead biologist, had insisted. They'd found it on a shelf 11,000 feet below the rig, a black stone, or at least it looked like stone, smooth, egg-shaped with faint ridges like gills running along its surface. It pulsed faintly when touched, like it had a heartbeat. They placed it in a reinforced tank in the observation bay, locked it up, monitored it. The humming grew louder that night, and Lena dreamed of drowning. Only it wasn't water that filled her lungs. It was voices. By day 10, the crew started acting strangely. One technician stopped eating, just sat by the tank staring at the black object, whispering to it. Another began pacing the halls at night, eyes wide, fingers twitching, muttering fragments of languages Lena didn't recognize. Morrow refused to acknowledge anything was wrong. He was obsessed, said the object was alive, maybe ancient, maybe extraterrestrial. It was the discovery of a lifetime, and he wouldn't let fear ruin it. But Lena wasn't afraid of the object. She was afraid of the ocean around it, because the sonar was picking up something huge beneath the rig, something that hadn't been there before, something that moved when the stone pulsed. Day 13. The communications array failed. No messages in or out. The supply vessel due to arrive didn't show. The wind picked up, the sea swelled, and the object cracked. Not shattered, hatched. The shell fell away in pieces, revealing a mass of tendrils, thin and translucent, like jellyfish limbs tangled around a central eye that didn't blink. It just stared. Dr. Morrow tried to touch it. The glass of the tank shattered, and the creature vanished. They searched the entire rig, found nothing, except a trail of salt water leading back to the central shaft, the one that descended straight into the deep. Lena begged them to leave it, seal it off, wait for help, but Morrow was already climbing down. 3 others followed him. Only one came back. She didn't speak, just sat in the galley, eyes staring into a corner no one else could see, lips moving in a silent conversation with something beneath the floor. That night, Lena heard it again, the hum, now a chorus, and something brushing the underside of the rig, like a hand or a fin, or both. Day 15. Only 3 of them left. The woman from the shaft jumped overboard during breakfast, didn't scream, didn't hesitate, just walked off the edge into the waves. Lena ran to the comms room and smashed the emergency beacon, hoping the failsafe still worked. The platform shuddered. Somewhere far below, metal groaned and tore. The lights flickered, and the humming became a song. Something was rising. She ran to the observation deck. Far beneath the waves, a shape twisted and turned. It was impossible to gauge its size, too big to be real. Its skin rippled like liquid shadow. Eyes blinked open, dozens at once, glowing with a pale, hungry light. And from its back, hundreds of tendrils reached up like arms. One of them touched the platform, and everything went dark. Lena doesn't remember how she survived. The rescue vessel found her days later, adrift on a section of torn decking, alone, rambling about the deep and the song and the egg that was not an egg. They said the Oceanus platform sank. No survivors, no debris, no explanation. They never found the object. And Lena never spoke again, but every night she dreams of the hum, of eyes watching from beneath the waves, of something ancient and patient, still rising, waiting for the next door to open. The reflection room. The hospital was never supposed to be that quiet. Even at night, there should have been the buzz of fluorescence, the steady beeping of machines, nurses shuffling down linoleum floors, murmurs behind curtains. But when I arrived at Old Briar General, it was silent. I was there to photograph the abandoned structure for an architectural archive. The hospital had been shut down for nearly a decade. Budget cuts and rumors of malpractice, and it was scheduled for demolition at the end of the month. My job was to document what was left before the wrecking crew came through. The security guard on duty was half asleep and didn't seem to care what I did as long as I signed in and left before dawn. He handed me a flashlight, a worn map of the facility, and pointed down the west wing. "Stay out of the reflection room," he muttered, not looking up. I paused. "What's that?" "Just don't go in there." Then he turned the volume up on his little TV and said nothing more. The hospital was a maze. Rooms still held rusted beds. Wheelchairs stood abandoned in corners. Faded signs with flaking letters pointed toward radiology, surgery, maternity. Every step echoed too loud, like the walls were listening. I took photos in silence. The camera worked fine in the upper floors, but when I descended to the basement, where the psych ward used to be, the flash flickered and died. My flashlight began to dim, even though I'd checked the batteries twice. I told myself it was fine, just old wiring, old batteries. Nothing strange, nothing wrong. I found the reflection room by accident. There was no label on the door, just a warped wooden plaque with the number B100T etched faintly into it. The door was different from the others, thicker with a black, glassy sheen where a window used to be. I shouldn't have gone in, but I'd already pushed the door open before I realized where I was. The room was empty. No bed, no machines, just walls covered entirely in mirrors. Not decorative ones, institutional. The kind you find in interrogation rooms, stretched wall to wall, aged with streaks and fingerprints, floor to ceiling, all four sides. And in every mirror, I saw myself, except I didn't. Because in one of them, I didn't blink. The real me blinked. The reflection didn't. I froze. The light above buzzed, then popped. Everything went black, except the mirrors. They glowed faintly, and all of my reflections were still staring, but only one was smiling. I ran, tripped over the threshold, and scrambled up the basement stairs, heart pounding. When I reached the main level, the lights were fine again. The hum of the building returned. But something had changed. Every mirror I passed, from bathroom sinks to old patient rooms, reflected things wrong. A delay, a smirk, a tilt of the head that didn't match mine. I covered the lens of my camera, didn't take another photo, didn't want to see what it might capture. Back at home, I deleted the reflection room photos, but they came back. Every time I opened the folder, they were there. A dozen shots I hadn't taken, me standing in the center of the mirrored room, surrounded by smiling copies. Each photo slightly different. In one, my eyes were missing. In another, my hands were pressed flat against the glass, blood smearing from torn fingertips. In the last, my reflection was facing away, walking deeper into a hallway that didn't exist. I deleted them again. They returned. I smashed the camera. It didn't help. That night, I covered all the mirrors in my apartment. Blankets, towels, anything I could find, even the TV screen. But around 3 a.m., I woke to a faint sound. Glass tapping. Tap, tap, tap. I turned on the light. The sheet over my bedroom mirror had fallen, and in the reflection, I wasn't alone. My double stood behind me, same hair, same face, but smiling too wide, and its fingers were tapping the inside of the mirror. I turned. No one there, but in the reflection, it raised its hand and waved. I moved out the next day, stayed in motels, slept under dim lights, avoided mirrors at all costs, but they found me anyway in the chrome of faucets and elevator doors, in the eyes of strangers that looked too familiar. I saw myself, always smiling, always watching, sometimes mouthing words I couldn't hear, sometimes pressing a hand to the glass, inviting me back. I don't sleep much now, and when I do, I dream of B113. I dream of mirrors that lead to somewhere else. Somewhere I'm still trapped, because I think the me that walked out of that hospital isn't me at all. And the real me, he's still in the reflection room, waiting for someone else to take his place. Whispers in the static. When my grandfather died, he left behind a farmhouse deep in the hills of Vermont. The kind of place that looks like it's held together by memory and rot. Slanted porch, moss-covered roof, and furniture older than most small countries. I inherited it because no one else wanted it. My mother hadn't spoken to him in 20 years, and the rest of the family pretended he didn't exist. Still, I went. I needed space, silence, and a break from the chaos of the city. I should have stayed in the chaos, because the farmhouse wasn't empty, and the silence was never really silence. The first few days were uneventful. The plumbing moaned, the wind howled through cracks, and the old floorboards creaked under every step like they were complaining about being disturbed. I explored the attic, found boxes of dusty war medals, yellowing photographs, and a stack of VHS tapes marked only with dates. But what caught my attention was the radio. It sat in the kitchen, bulky, old-fashioned, the kind with knobs and an analog tuner. A thick cord connected it to the wall, and when I plugged it in out of curiosity, it clicked to life with a low hum. No music, no talk shows, just static. I turned the dial slowly, passing nothing but white noise until... click. A voice. Not a station, not a broadcast. A single voice whispering from beneath the static, "You can hear me now." I unplugged the radio immediately, but the voice didn't stop. That night, I heard the static again, faint, drifting up the stairs. The radio wasn't plugged in. I went down, flashlight in hand, and found the radio on. The cord still lay limp on the floor. No power, no batteries, just static, and underneath it, a voice humming. Low, off-key, familiar, my grandfather's favorite song. I didn't sleep that night. In the morning, I took the radio outside and buried it behind the barn, 6 feet deep, just in case. By afternoon, it was back in the kitchen, covered in dirt, still humming, still whispering. I left the house, drove into town, asked the local mechanic if he knew anything about radios that worked without power. He looked at me long, then asked, "You staying out at the Brooks place?" I nodded, his face paled. "You hear it yet?" "Hear what?" He leaned in, voice low. "They say he built that radio to talk to his wife after she passed. Sat in that kitchen every night for years, just listening. Said she was in the static, said she answered." I laughed nervously. He didn't. "Don't stay too long," he said. "Some voices you don't want to hear." That night, the radio didn't whisper. It spoke, clear, cold, female. "Why did you leave me?" I backed away slowly. The air in the kitchen grew thick, like the house was holding its breath. "You promised." The lights flickered, then blew out. In the dark, I could still hear the radio, but it wasn't just one voice now. It was many, all whispering at once. "Stay." "Stay." I ran upstairs and locked the door. But the whispering was inside my head now, beneath the floor, inside the walls, in the static ringing in my ears. I found my grandfather's journal the next morning, hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the study. The last entries were frantic. "She's closer now. She won't let me leave. The voices aren't hers anymore. The static is a door." And the very last page, "If you hear them, it's too late." I packed my things and tried to leave. The car wouldn't start. The keys went missing. The roads out of town were suddenly closed for construction, signs I hadn't seen the day before. I was trapped, and the radio knew. That night, it said my name. "Elliot," over and over. "Elliot, come down." I stayed in bed, lights on, blanket pulled to my chin like a child hiding from a nightmare. But nightmares don't knock, and something was knocking. Soft, slow, from inside the closet. I opened it at dawn, empty, except for the radio, balanced neatly on a shelf, still humming, still whispering. I smashed it, threw it into the fireplace and lit it with lighter fluid, watched it burn to melted metal and black ash. Then I turned and saw 3 more radios on the kitchen table, all tuned to the same frequency, all whispering the same word: "Stay." I'm writing this from the attic now. The house won't let me leave. The whispers are louder than ever. Sometimes they sound like my grandfather. Sometimes they sound like my own voice. I haven't slept in days. The radios are multiplying. They've filled the house, one in every room, every drawer, every mirror. All whispering, all humming, all waiting. If you ever come to the Brooks farmhouse, don't plug anything in, don't tune the dial, don't listen to the static, because once you hear them, they never stop. The 5th door. It was a dare, like all the worst things in life. 5 of us snuck into the old Green Hollow Asylum just before midnight. My cousin Wes had a bolt cutter, 2 flashlights, and a 6-pack of flat beer that made him feel invincible. He was the one who first mentioned the 5th door. "You know the story," he said, grinning. 4 padded rooms in the basement, and 1 more that's locked shut. "There's always a 5th door," I muttered, trying to sound unimpressed. But my voice cracked. The rest of them, Jess, Marcus, and Talia, laughed nervously. We all knew the legend. Green Hollow Asylum was shut down in the 60s after a fire and a string of unexplained deaths. They said one of the doctors had gone mad and sealed a patient inside a room that didn't exist on any blueprint. Staff who got too close heard knocking, screaming. Some say one nurse opened the door and never came back out. The state closed the facility, and no one ever reopened it. But the 5th door remained. We shouldn't have gone looking for it. The inside of Green Hollow was rotten with time. Peeling paint, waterlogged ceilings, and graffiti tags from braver idiots than us. The floor tiles crunched under our shoes. The air smelled like mildew, dust, and something sour underneath it all, like old meat left too long in the sun. "This place is cursed," Jess whispered, and I didn't laugh. It took us nearly an hour to find the stairs down to the basement. Every turn was a dead end, every corridor darker than the last. The power, obviously, had been cut for decades. We moved by flashlight, cones of pale light flickering as the batteries strained. Then Wes found the padded cells. The first 4 doors were just like the stories, heavy, rusted steel with tiny square windows. Most of the padding inside was ripped and black with mold. On the 3rd door, someone had scratched "help" into the padding with what looked like fingernails. But there was no 5th door. Not at first. "I swear it's here," Wes said, running his hands along the wall. "There's a hidden seam, like the wall is fake." Talia rolled her eyes. "Maybe the legend's just that, a legend." But then Marcus said, "Guys, look." In the far corner, the brickwork didn't match the rest of the foundation. It was smoother, seamless. Wes tapped it, hollow. He grinned and pulled out the bolt cutter. One solid slam, and the wall cracked. Behind it, a black steel door stood waiting. No window, no handle, just a tiny keyhole. A handprint had been smeared across it in something long dried and dark brown. Jess backed away. "Nope, I'm done." Talia followed her. "We've seen it." "Great, let's go." But Wes reached into his coat and pulled out an old brass key. We stared at him. "You brought that?" "Found it online. Old collector brass said it was from Green Hollow. I figured if we found the door..." He didn't finish the sentence, just slid the key into the lock. It turned with a click, and the door opened. Inside was darkness. Not just the absence of light, a presence of dark. The kind that drinks your flashlight beams and throws them back cold and empty. I felt it immediately. Wrong. Heavy, like the room was holding its breath, waiting for someone to step inside. Wes didn't hesitate. He walked in first. Then Marcus, then me. The room was bare, concrete walls, no furniture, no light fixture, just a mirror. A single, full-length mirror mounted to the far wall. No dust, no cracks, perfectly clean. Our reflections stared back at us. Except they weren't us. My reflection didn't move when I did. Its eyes were just a little too wide. Its smile a little too sharp. I stepped to the side. It stayed still. Marcus reached forward to touch the glass. His reflection raised its hand too, but half a second too late. Then it smiled, and so did mine, and Wes's. All of them smiling, not in sync, not real. Wes stepped closer, entranced. "Guys, they're trying to talk." The mirror shimmered like water, and his reflection moved through it. Wes didn't scream. He just vanished. The mirror rippled again, and where his reflection had been, something else stood. Still in his shape, still in his clothes, but not Wes. The eyes were black. The smile was wrong, and it reached out from the mirror, pressing fingers against the glass. I grabbed Marcus. We ran. The door slammed behind us, nearly catching my foot. The others screamed. Wes's voice came from behind the steel, low, muffled. "Let me out." Then it laughed, and we ran. We made it outside just before dawn. Jess was crying. Talia couldn't stop shaking. Marcus kept whispering. He looked like Wes, but it wasn't Wes. I didn't sleep for days. But eventually, life moved on. Sort of. Wes was declared missing. We never told anyone what happened. We couldn't explain it, but the worst part? Last night I heard a knock at my apartment door. I looked through the peephole, and Wes was standing there, smiling, holding a mirror. There's a stretch of land outside my hometown that no one plows anymore. Not since the summer of 1998. They call it the Smiling Field. You won't find it on maps. It's not labeled on any property surveys. You won't even notice it if you're driving by, just a slight dip off County Road 14 where the grass grows too tall and the wind dies before it reaches the fence line. But if you stop your car, if you roll down your window, you'll hear them. The laughter. Soft and low, like it's being swallowed by the dirt. My older brother Sam dared me to go in when I was 10. Back then, we didn't believe the stories. At least, not really. Every town has its own haunted hill, its own dead forest or devil's bridge. We thought it was just a myth, something the older kids made up to scare us. So we brought flashlights, granola bars, a BB gun, and we climbed the fence. The air changed immediately. It smelled like old pennies and wet earth. The sky looked the same, blue and cloudless, but the sun felt farther away, like it had dimmed somehow, like we were standing in a shadow no one else could see. Still, we laughed it off. We walked into the field. The grass was tall, almost chest height for me. We followed a narrow trail of trampled stalks winding deeper through the green. Sam led the way, holding the BB gun like it mattered. "Probably just deer paths," he said. We walked for 10 minutes, then 20. Then we heard it. Laughter. Not close, not loud, but wrong. too smooth, too even, like a recording played on loop. No breaths, no variation, no emotion, just laughter. We stopped. Sam raised the gun. "It's probably a prank," he said, though his voice shook. The grass ahead of us moved, then parted, and a woman stepped into view. She was smiling. That was the first thing I noticed, not a polite smile, not a friendly one, a wide, toothy grin that never touched her eyes. Her dress was white, soaked brown at the hem. Her feet were bare. She had long black hair that didn't move, even though there was wind now, wind that somehow only touched us. But her smile stayed, unbroken, unblinking. "I'm so glad you came," she said. Her voice was thick, slow, like it had to crawl out of her throat. Sam raised the BB gun. "We're leaving." "Are you?" she asked. The laughter returned, but it didn't come from her. It came from everywhere. The grass, the sky, the earth beneath our feet. I turned to run. The grass behind us was gone, replaced by a row of people, men, women, children, all smiling, all standing perfectly still, blocking the path, and behind them more emerged from the grass, from the air, from nowhere. Sam fired. The BB pinged off the woman's shoulder. She didn't react, didn't even blink. He grabbed my hand and ran sideways, away from the crowd, through the grass that no longer felt like grass. It felt like fingers, grabbing, reaching, trying to pull us down. We stumbled, fell, got up again, ran until we couldn't hear the laughter, until we reached the fence. We climbed over and didn't look back. That was 27 years ago. Sam never talked about it, neither did I, until this morning when I got a call from Mom. She said Sam had gone missing, left town 2 weeks ago, said he had unfinished business, said he was heading to the field. I told her I'd find him. I'm sitting in my truck now, just off County Road 14. The sun is bright, the grass is tall, and the fence looks older than it should. I'm not 10 anymore, and I know what waits out there, but I can hear the laughter again, and it's louder now, because this time, they're expecting me. The light in the drain. It started with the storm. We get plenty of rain in Lockwood, but this one was different. Sheets of lightning that lit up the sky like a war zone, and thunder that shook dishes off the shelves. The streets flooded in minutes. Manholes overflowed. Sewers gurgled like something was trying to crawl out. I live in a cul-de-sac that backs up against the old ravine, right where the town's drainage system empties out. After the power went out, I lit candles and tried to pretend I wasn't creeped out by the sounds outside. Groaning pipes, wind howling through the chimney, and something else. Something faint, like whispering, coming from the bathtub drain. I live alone, no pets, no roommates. So when I heard that whisper, I assumed it was just the storm messing with my ears. White noise, static nerves. I leaned closer to the tub out of dumb curiosity, candlelight flickering on the tile. The whispering stopped, but then something blinked back at me. From inside the drain. 2 pale, colorless eyes. Human, but not, and just below them, light. A soft, pulsing glow like a firefly caught in the plumbing. I jerked back so hard I hit the sink. Water bubbled up from the drain, thick and dark, like oil. It smelled like rot. The next day, I called a plumber. Didn't mention the eyes, just said the drain was backed up and smelled off. He poked around for 10 minutes before telling me the entire system was pressurized wrong. Said he'd never seen anything like it. Then he went quiet and asked if anyone else lived in the house. I said no. He frowned, walked back to the tub, and pointed. "Looks like hair," he said. I leaned closer. It wasn't hair, it was string. Wet, gray, and fibrous, like plant roots or veins, trailing down into the dark. He left 20 minutes later, visibly shaken, and told me, half joking, that I might want to call a priest instead. I didn't laugh, because that night, the whispering came back, and this time it knew my name. Elliot. It came up from the kitchen sink, from the bathroom drain, from the toilet, even from the gap under the dishwasher. Always the same voice, gentle, like a mother calling her child home. "Elliot, come down." I stuffed towels into the drains, taped over the sinks, didn't shower, didn't flush, but it wasn't enough, because the light was spreading. Tiny glowing veins crept from the kitchen drain, glowing a dull, sickly yellow. I followed them under the cabinets, into the walls, and out to the backyard, straight to the storm drain at the bottom of the ravine. The metal grate had split open. The light spilled up from inside like fog, and something in the dark below whispered, louder now, "We've made room." I dreamt of water that night, black and warm. Endless. I floated in it, limbs heavy, unable to move. Beneath me, a shape swam in circles, pale arms, long fingers, and a stitched mouth that opened wide without tearing. When I woke, my feet were wet, the bathtub had filled itself, and the drain was whispering again. Only this time, it wasn't just my name, it was everyone's. Voices layered over voices. Hundreds, thousands, calling out, crying, begging, and beneath them all, that one same promise: we made room. I tried to leave town, got maybe 15 miles before my engine cut out, tried another route. Flooded, every road out was blocked by construction or wreckage. Power lines down, trees snapped like matchsticks. And I realized then, no one else had left either, because no one else had noticed. Neighbors still walked dogs, went to work, watered lawns, even as the glow spread beneath their feet, even as the drains whispered. Even as the light crept out of the manholes at night and slithered up through vents and floorboards, it had already gotten inside. Only I could hear it. And it wanted me back. I stayed awake for 2 days, barricaded in my bedroom. Then on the third night, the lights went out again. A final blackout, and the whispering stopped. Not faded, stopped. The silence was worse. I crept to the bathroom, candle in hand, and peeled away the towels covering the drain. It was gone. Just blackness now. But deep in that silence I heard water dripping, and then something else. A knock from inside the pipes. Tap, tap, tap. Then, we made room for you, Elliot. The light blinked back on, so did the eyes, so did the smile, and the last thing I saw before the world went black was a hand, pale, wet, reaching up from the drain, inviting me home. Shh, the ragman song. Every town has an old legend meant to scare kids into behaving. Bloody Mary in the mirror, the hook-handed man in the woods, the woman in white who walks the roadside. Ours was the ragman. He wasn't a ghost or a killer or even a monster, really. The story went that he came to your house when the wind changed, dragging a cart full of empty cages behind him. He only showed up if you left your window open at night. And if you heard him singing, you had to close your eyes and pretend to sleep. Because if you saw him, really saw him, he'd see you too. And then he'd come back the next night and the next, until there was a cage with your name on it. We all used to dare each other to sleep with the window cracked. Nobody lasted more than an hour before slamming it shut and laughing it off. Until Mason. He lived 2 doors down from me. Tall, quiet kid with messy hair and a nervous laugh. We were both 12 when he decided to prove the ragman was just a story. Left his window wide open, put a little tape recorder on the sill to catch the song. He didn't come to school the next day or the day after that. His parents said he'd gone to visit family, but his room stayed dark, and when the wind blew, I thought I heard wheels rolling past my house, squeaking, dragging, and a low voice humming something slow and broken. The ragman song. Shh, I'm older now, 29. I moved away, lived in 3 different states, worked forgettable jobs, dated forgettable people. I never told anyone about Mason or how that wind still unsettles me. It's easy to forget things like the ragman when you've got bills to pay and no time for nightmares. But last week my mom called, said she found something in the attic while cleaning, an old cassette tape with my name on it. Said it sounded like someone singing. I told her to throw it out. She didn't. She mailed it to me. It arrived yesterday. I stared at the package for a long time before opening it. The tape was unlabeled, dusty, but intact. I didn't even own a player anymore, so I dug one up at a thrift store. Just curiosity. That's all it was. I hit play. At first, just static. Then beneath the hiss, a sound. Wheels turning, metal rattling, and then singing. A voice so low and cracked it barely sounded human. Tattered eyes and tattered skin, the ragman comes to pull you in. Wagons roll and windows cry. He counts the hearts that will not lie. I hit stop. My hands were shaking because I recognized that voice. It was Mason, and he was whispering over the end of the song. He's real. Don't look at him. Don't listen. Don't open the window. I unplugged the player and threw the tape in the trash. Then I locked every window in the apartment. But I couldn't sleep because the wind had picked up and something was squeaking down the street. I woke up at 3:11 a.m. to a soft clang outside my window. I live on the 2nd floor. I didn't move, didn't breathe, the blinds fluttered, and something sang just outside the glass. Rags for liars, rags for thieves, rags for those who don't believe. I shut my eyes, held my breath. I heard fingers tapping on the glass. 1, 2, 3, then silence. When I opened my eyes, the blinds were still, but the window was unlocked, and on the floor was a scrap of dirty gray cloth wrapped around a tooth. I didn't go to work the next day, didn't answer my phone. I sat in my apartment with every light on, a bat in my hand, and towels jammed into every crevice of the windows and door frames. Just before sunset, I heard a knock at the door. 3 short taps. I didn't answer. Something slid under the door. A photograph in a cage, screaming. Behind him, shadows, dozens of them, all pressed against the bars, and in the corner of the photo, partially visible, was the edge of a cartwheel, rusty, familiar, and a long gloved hand holding a keyring. I don't know how to stop him. No one ever said how. There's no ritual, no chant, just warnings. Don't open the window. Don't listen to the song. Don't look at him. But it's too late for me. I heard the song. I saw the photograph. And now, when the wind blows, he parks his cart beneath my window. I hear the cages creaking, the locks clicking, and that awful rusted music box melody as he hums to himself. Tonight I found a second scrap of cloth, this one embroidered, with my name. The waiting room. It started with a wrong turn. I'd been driving all night through back roads, trying to avoid the flooded highway. My phone had no service, GPS was dead, and the last gas station I passed was boarded up and abandoned. The road was so dark it looked like the headlights were being swallowed, and the rain hadn't let up in hours. I was half asleep at the wheel when I saw the sign. Urgent care, 0.3 miles. I didn't need a hospital, but I figured it was a place with lights, maybe even a bathroom and someone to point me back to the interstate. So I followed the gravel road, tires kicking up muddy water, until I saw it. A single-story building with a flickering red cross above the entrance. The parking lot was empty. Not just empty, perfect. Not a puddle, not a leaf. The lines freshly painted, the bushes trimmed. It was like someone had taken a photo of a parking lot from 1974 and printed it into reality. Something about it felt wrong, but I went inside anyway. The lobby was silent. Plastic chairs, pale green walls, fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly overhead. There was no receptionist, no nurse, no sound, except for a small old TV mounted in the corner, playing static. I called out, no answer. Then I noticed the door labeled waiting room just ahead. It looked older than the rest of the building. The wood swollen with age, the letters painted by hand, the knob cold to the touch. I should have left then. I should have turned around and walked back into the rain. But I opened the door and stepped inside. The waiting room wasn't empty. It was full. Dozens of people sat shoulder to shoulder in dusty chairs. No one moved, no one spoke. They all stared straight ahead. There was no sound, not a cough, not a breath, just silence. And all of them looked wrong, like wax statues or something close. Skin pale and slightly translucent, eyes cloudy like glass, and every single one had a paper number pinned to their chest. I looked down. Someone had pinned one to me. 52. I hadn't noticed anyone approach. There was no safety pin, no hole in my shirt, but it was there. I turned to leave. The door was gone. Where the door had been, there was now only a wall. I backed away, heart thudding. One of the people, an old woman in a hospital gown, tilted her head toward me, joints cracking like dried wood. "You can't leave," she whispered. It was the only sound in the room. "You have to wait your turn." "What is this place?" I asked, but she just smiled faintly, then looked straight ahead again. I walked past the others, trying to find an exit. But the room never ended. Rows and rows of chairs, flickering lights overhead, a soft smell of antiseptic and rot, then a bell rang. Ding! Everyone turned toward the front. A red digital counter above the far wall lit up. 1. The man with the 1 tag stood up and shuffled forward, disappearing through a swinging door. No one said a word. Then the silence returned. I sat down. I don't know why. Maybe because I was tired. Maybe because something made me. I tried talking to the others. Most didn't respond. Some whispered nonsense. One man cried but made no sound. The woman beside me was mouthing something over and over. I leaned in to listen. "Don't lose your number." Hours passed. I tried ripping the tag off my shirt, but it wouldn't move. Like it was part of me now. Like skin. I stopped counting how many people had gone through the door. Every time the bell rang, the room shifted. More chairs, more people. I stopped recognizing the language on some of their tags. I watched someone try to run when their number came up. The floor opened beneath them, swallowed them whole. Then the number rang again, and the person was back in their seat. Only this time they looked worse, older, grayer, tired, like time itself had passed through them. Eventually I stopped trying to leave. I just waited. I watched, and I counted, until finally, ding! 52. I stood up, the door swung open. I walked forward and found myself in a hallway that seemed too long for the size of the building. At the end was a room. One bed, one chair, one mirror. The walls were soft, padded, wet like skin. The mirror didn't reflect me. It showed a waiting room full of empty chairs, no people, just tags, numbered, floating, waiting. I turned around, the door was gone, the lights flickered, and in the silence I heard the bell again. But this time it was inside me, ringing, constant, calling the next number. The boy in the crawlspace. When Julia and her 6-year-old son Adam moved into the old Victorian house on Elderberry Lane, she thought they were finally getting a fresh start. The house was cheap, suspiciously cheap, but after the divorce and the cramped apartment life, it felt like a gift. A creaky, dusty, drafty gift, but still a new beginning. The first week was filled with small discoveries. A drawer full of yellowed recipes, a loose step on the staircase that groaned when you stepped just right, and a small wooden door behind the pantry shelves, barely 3 feet high. A crawl space. Julia didn't think much of it at first. She sealed it off with boxes and forgot about it. Adam didn't. On the 10th night in the new house, Julia woke to a faint sound, a whisper maybe, or fabric brushing across wood. She got up, bleary-eyed, and found Adam standing in the hallway, facing the pantry. "Sweetie?" She whispered. "What are you doing?" He didn't turn around. "He's crying," Adam said softly. "Who is?" "The boy. He lives under the house. He's lonely." Julia's stomach dropped. She gently touched Adam's shoulder and led him back to bed, brushing off his words as an act of imagination. New house, new shadows. It made sense. He'd adjust. But the next morning, she found the pantry door wide open, and the boxes she'd placed in front of the crawl space pushed aside. The little wooden door stood open, just a crack. That night, she nailed it shut. 3 thick nails driven deep. Then she sprinkled flour on the floor in front of it. She didn't know why, just to be sure. When she checked the next morning, the nails were still in place, but there were footprints in the flour, small, bare, leading out of the crawl space. Adam changed after that. He grew quiet, pale, listened to things that weren't there. At dinner, he'd leave an empty chair next to him. "It's for Henry," he said. "That your imaginary friend?" Julia asked with a forced smile. Adam nodded but didn't look up from his plate. "He says I can stay with him forever if I want." Julia stopped chewing. "Who told you that?" "Henry. He says there's more room under the house now." She put him to bed early that night and locked the pantry door. But at 2:11 a.m., she woke to a noise she couldn't explain. Laughter. High-pitched. Giggling. Not Adam's voice. She ran to his room. Empty. The window was locked, the closet was open, and inside the closet was a tunnel, too narrow for an adult, but just big enough for a child to crawl through. She called the police. They searched the house, tore up floorboards, opened the walls. No tunnel, no crawl space, no pantry door. They asked if she'd been sleeping well, if she was taking any medication. They gave her a card for a grief counselor and left. But Julia didn't sleep after that. She sat by the kitchen all night, eyes fixed on the wall where the pantry had been. By dawn, there was a door again, same shape, same hinges, wide open. Inside the crawl space, she found toys, rotting dolls, rusted trucks, and drawings, dozens of them, nailed to the walls. Crayon pictures of children underground, smiling, holding hands with something tall and thin and eyeless. At the end of the tunnel was a trapdoor. She opened it and heard voices, children's voices, laughing, calling her name. She didn't go down. She couldn't. Instead, she sealed it again and burned the house down 2 days later. They called it arson. She didn't fight it. She just kept repeating one thing to anyone who would listen, over and over. The boy in the crawl space is still lonely. The Lantern Keeper. They say no one ever volunteered to work the Grey Harrow Lighthouse. It wasn't because it was remote, though it was, perched on the edge of a jagged cliff with 30 miles of frozen Atlantic crashing below. And it wasn't because the pay was poor, though it barely covered whiskey and bread. It was because of the light, not the beacon, the old rotating Fresnel lens that had guided ships for over a century, but the other light, the one that sometimes flickered from beneath the tower, the one that moved upward when there were no stairs. I was the last keeper assigned to Grey Harrow before it was decommissioned. Didn't have much of a choice. I needed to disappear for a while, and the lighthouse was a perfect place to be forgotten. Just me, the sea, and a logbook. The previous keeper had quit mid-shift, leaving no note. They said he rowed to shore, walked straight into the tree line, and never came back out. I arrived on a Monday. By Wednesday, I'd started to hear footsteps on the stairs at night. It's a spiral staircase, winding tight through the stone tower, worn slick by decades of sea salt and boots. The echo of footsteps was unmistakable, measured, slow, heavy. They never came while I was moving, only when I sat still, ate, wrote, read. At first I thought it was the metal contracting in the cold, or maybe the wind pushing on the tower. But the steps always paused right outside the room, as if waiting, and then they continued up, only upward, never down, always one step higher. On the sixth night, the light from the beacon went out. The bulb was new, no storms, no wind, just silence and sudden blackness. I grabbed my lantern and climbed the stairs to the top. Halfway up, the air changed. It smelled like brine and mildew, like wet rope left to rot in a cellar. My flame flickered. Then, for a single second, every window in the tower blacked out, like something had passed in front of them. I reached the top. The bulb was still intact, still warm. The wires, though, they were torn out, clean, like they'd been pulled by gloved hands, and scratched into the metal housing were 4 words, "You are the light." After that, I started seeing the lanterns. At first, just one, glowing faintly at the bottom of the cliffs, swinging back and forth in the dark. Too far down for a person to stand, too steady for a wave, then another, and another. Each night more appeared, floating in a slow circle around the base of the lighthouse, each swinging at the same pace, like a ritual, like a signal. One night I used binoculars, and in each lantern glow I saw a face, pale, salt-bleached, eyes hollowed like driftwood, each one staring up at me, unblinking, smiling. The journal in the keeper's desk had only a few pages filled. Just one entry stood out. There must always be a lantern keeper. If the tower goes dark, the others will rise, and they remember being drowned. The next page was torn out. I slept with the lantern beside my bed after that, didn't use the electric lights anymore, didn't climb to the top, and still the footsteps came, closer, louder. Sometimes I heard breathing. Not mine. I tried to leave on the 12th day. Took the rowboat out, eyes fixed on the horizon. Halfway to shore, the fog rolled in, fast, heavy. The sea turned to syrup beneath the boat. Something bumped the hull from below. Once, then again. A third time. I dropped the oars, looked down, lanterns, dozens, all beneath the surface. Still lit, still swinging. And between them, the outline of a face. Eyes open, smiling, mouth moving, singing something I couldn't hear. I turned back, rowed until my arms bled. The fog never lifted, but when I reached the shore, the lighthouse door was open, and the light in the tower was already on. I've been here for 73 days now. The beacon works again, but not because I fixed it. I never touched the wires, never climbed those stairs again. The tower lights itself now, always just before midnight. And the footsteps, they still climb, still one step higher each night. Last night they reached my floor. Tonight they'll pass it. There's only one level left, the lantern room. I haven't seen the lanterns outside in 3 days. I think they're waiting for the light to fail again. Or for me to take my place, because I understand now. The lighthouse doesn't warn ships. It warns what's below to stay back. And when there's no keeper, the others rise. Altitude. Flight 237 took off from Denver just after midnight, bound for Seattle with only 13 passengers on board. A red-eye, quiet, and uneventful. The kind of flight no one remembers. Except this one, because I was on it. And I remember everything. It started around cruising altitude. The plane leveled out, seatbelt signs flicked off, and the flight attendants vanished behind the curtain at the front of the cabin. I was in seat 17A, window seat 2 rows ahead of the engine. The hum of the turbines soothed me into a drowsy state, just awake enough to notice the strange things begin. The overhead lights flickered once, then again. And then the cabin dropped into near darkness, only the blue aisle lights glowing faintly like veins. No announcement, no turbulence, just dim silence. The woman next to me, business suit, earbuds, didn't even notice. Most of the passengers were asleep or reading, faces lit by phones and tablets. Then the air changed, subtle at first, like walking into a room where someone's just left. The pressure felt wrong, slightly off, like the air was pushing in at a weird angle. And there was a smell. Something sweet, rotting, like fruit gone bad in a sealed container. I turned to look out the window and froze, because the sky wasn't right. It wasn't night anymore. No stars, no clouds, no moon, just endless gray. No horizon, no light source, just gray stretching in every direction. And we were no longer moving. I leaned forward, pressing my face to the glass. The engine was still spinning, but the clouds weren't passing. The wings weren't trembling. We were completely still, hovering, suspended in gray. I reached up to press the flight attendant button. No chime, no light. The woman next to me was gone, her seatbelt still buckled, her earbuds still resting on the cushion, her seat depression still warm, but no trace of her. I stood up, heart pounding. The other passengers were still there, mostly, but something was wrong with their faces, blurry, washed out, like badly restored paintings. Familiar features in the wrong proportions, mouths just a little too wide, noses slightly crooked, all of them staring forward, unmoving. Some blinked, none breathed. I walked toward the front of the plane. The curtains parted before I touched them. The cockpit door was wide open. Empty, no pilots, just the instrument lights blinking quietly, and a quiet hiss, like static or whispering. I turned around, and every passenger was standing in the aisle, silent, smiling, mouths closed, but smiling. And one by one they all pointed to my seat. 17A, I ran, back through the cabin toward the tail, past the lavatories and the galley. The back door was gone, just smooth wall, no emergency exit, no handle, no escape. I turned back. Seat 17A was no longer empty. The woman who'd been beside me was there again, except now her face was smooth, no eyes, no mouth, just a blank mask of skin. She turned her head toward me anyway, and tilted it like she could still see. A voice filled the cabin, not from the intercom, not from a person, just a voice. "Return to your seat, Mr. Kellis." I never gave them my name. I sat. The seat felt colder now, wetter. When I looked out the window again, the gray was gone. Now there was black, not night. Void, no stars, no light, just an endless consuming black. And from it, shapes, tall, thin, like branches or limbs, moving slowly like they were reaching toward the plane. The passengers were seated again too, all staring forward, all perfectly still, except one, 3 rows ahead, who turned around and looked exactly like me. He smiled, stood up, walked toward me, and I couldn't move, not from fear, from gravity. Something heavy held me down, like invisible hands pressing on my shoulders and chest. The copy of me leaned in close, its mouth opened, too wide, unhinged. Inside was more darkness, and from it I heard the sound of tearing paper and my own voice whispering, "You're not supposed to be awake." The lights came on, warm, bright, cheerful. A flight attendant walked past, smiling kindly. "We'll be landing shortly, Mr. Kellis. Please remain seated." I blinked. The cabin looked normal again, passengers chatting softly, children playing with tablets, my drink untouched on the tray, everything fine. But outside the window, the sky was still black, and the ground was nowhere in sight. The seat next to me was empty, but there was a note on the cushion. In handwriting I recognized as my own, "Don't fall asleep again." We never landed. It's been hours, days. Time doesn't move up here. They bring food, they smile. But the windows never change, just endless dark. And sometimes when I blink too long, the cabin is full of strangers wearing my face, and they're all pointing at my seat. The trail that loops. It was supposed to be a simple weekend hike. Just me, my brother Nolan, and his friend Mia. We picked a lesser-known trail up in the northern ridge, a quiet loop through dense pine forest, great views, and barely any foot traffic. Nolan had done it once before, 2 years ago, and said it was peaceful, eerie even. We thought that sounded perfect. We packed light, food for 2 days, a tent, maps, compass, phones fully charged. We started early Saturday morning under a slate-gray sky. The forest swallowed us up within minutes. The trees here grew close together, tall and dark, and the wind barely moved between them. It didn't feel like any forest I'd ever walked through. It was too quiet. Even the birds seemed hesitant. After about 3 hours of hiking, we reached a crooked wooden sign nailed to a bent tree. Loop trail, 5 miles ahead. Nolan looked confused. I don't remember that sign. You probably just forgot, Mia said. We kept going, but something shifted. The air grew heavier, the trees leaned closer, and though we followed the same direction, the trail beneath our boots began to look less worn, as if no one had walked it in years. At one point, we passed an old leather boot lying in the mud, the sole split open and filled with black moss. No one said anything. Then, after another hour, we reached the same crooked wooden sign. Loop trail, 5 miles ahead. Mia frowned. Is this a joke? Nolan checked the map, checked the compass, shook both. This isn't right. We didn't turn around. We've been walking in a straight line, I added. We stood in silence. Then Mia pointed at the sign. Her hand was trembling. There's blood on it. We looked. A dark smear ran along the bottom edge, fresh, sticky, and unmistakably red. No one spoke. We just turned around and started walking back the way we came. The trail was different now. The trees were too tall, the undergrowth had vanished, and there were no animal sounds. No rustling, no birds, not even the hum of insects. The only sound was our breathing and the crunch of boots on the dry path. Then we came across a second sign. Crooked, faded, rotten. Loop trail, 5 miles ahead. Mia started crying. We didn't turn. We didn't loop. We're lost, Nolan muttered. I shook my head. We're not lost. The trail's looping us. Don't, he said sharply. Don't say that. But we all knew it. We decided to set up camp just before dark. A clearing opened up unexpectedly. Perfect circle, no rocks, no branches. Too perfect. We lit a fire, ate granola bars in silence. Around midnight, Nolan shook me awake. Do you hear that? Mia was already sitting up, eyes wide. The forest was whispering, a low hiss just below the range of understanding. Not wind, not water. Words, thousands of them, all around us. Cover the fire, I whispered. We buried the flame, plunging the clearing into total darkness. Then the voices stopped. Footsteps began instead, soft, measured, surrounding us, circling. We huddled together, listening. Then a voice whispered directly into my ear, "Turn around." I spun. Nothing, just the dark, but the forest was breathing now. By morning, the clearing was gone. The trees had closed in, no path, no footprints, no signs. Just the three of us, standing in a dead grove, and another sign, half buried, old but somehow new. Loop trail 5 miles ahead. We lost it, screaming, crying, throwing things. Mia ran into the trees. Nolan and I chased after her, yelling her name. Branches whipped my face. The ground sloped, then dropped, then rose again. Time blurred. We found her an hour later, kneeling in a dry stream bed, staring at something. A pile of backpacks, dozens of them, all torn, moldy, ancient, each with a name stitched into the fabric. And on the very top, mine. The same color, same style, same initials burned into the strap. I've never been here, I whispered, but my bag was there, filled with things I didn't recognize. A torn photo of me and Nolan as kids. A blood-stained map and a note in my handwriting. Don't trust the signs, don't follow your voice, don't loop again. We didn't make camp that night. We walked until we couldn't, fell asleep on the trail. I woke up to screaming. Mia was gone. Nolan was standing over me, pale as death. She walked off, said she saw a house. We followed her footprints for a while until they stopped mid-step, like she vanished, like she was lifted. We searched all day. No sign of her, no sign of anything, just trees and a sign. Loop trail 5 miles ahead. Nolan stopped speaking after that, wouldn't eat, just stared at the trees. Sometimes I caught him whispering, sometimes he wasn't alone. He said he could hear Mia laughing, said she told him the way out. Said I needed to go back the way we came. I told him that's what it wants. That night, I pretended to sleep. I saw him get up. Saw him walk into the trees barefoot, following her voice. I didn't go after him. I knew I wouldn't come back if I did. I've been alone 3 days now, or maybe longer. The sun doesn't move. The birds don't sing. I eat what's left of the food. I don't sleep anymore, because the signs are everywhere now, growing out of trees, painted in blood on the bark. Loop trail 5 miles ahead. Keep walking. It's behind you. I don't look behind me anymore. The trees shift when I do. I hear breathing over my shoulder. I hear my voice calling for help. I just keep walking. I know I won't leave. I just want to stop before I loop again. The other mother. After Dad remarried, things got strange. At first, I thought it was just me being bitter. I was 12, my real mom had only been gone a year, and I didn't want anyone taking her place, especially not someone like Lorna. She was quiet, too quiet. Always smiling, but never in the way that reached her eyes. She never got mad, never raised her voice, even when I was being an absolute brat. That somehow made it worse. Dad said I'd get used to her, that she was trying. But I noticed things, like how she always locked the basement door at night, or how the cat, Pudding, wouldn't go near her, or how she'd stand outside my bedroom door in the middle of the night, just standing. I'd hear the floor creak and peek through the keyhole, and there she'd be, motionless in the dark facing the door, always gone by morning. One night I asked her why she did that. She didn't even blink. "I worry about you, sweetie. I just want to make sure you're safe." She touched my cheek. Her skin was ice cold. Her fingers were too long. I told Dad. He laughed, said I had an overactive imagination. "She's trying to bond with you," he said. I didn't argue, but I started locking my door at night and I started listening. Lorna hummed when she thought she was alone. Not songs I recognized, just low, rhythmic sounds. Repetitive, ancient sounding, almost like chanting. I once caught her humming in the kitchen while slicing carrots, except the carrots weren't there, just the knife, and a cutting board soaked in something dark. When she saw me, she dropped the knife, smiled. "Dinner soon, sweetheart." She served takeout that night. Dad didn't notice anything. The basement was always locked. Padlock, deadbolt, steel latch. Once when Lorna went to the store, I found the keys. I told myself I was being stupid, paranoid, even cruel. But the second I stepped into that basement, I knew something was wrong. The walls weren't stone, they were skin, stretched thin and pulsing, threaded with dark veins. A pile of bones sat in one corner, small, clean, organized, children's bones. And at the center of the room stood a tall oval mirror, framed in something that looked like twisted teeth. And in the reflection, I wasn't there. But Lorna was, smiling, standing behind me, even though she wasn't in the room. I slammed the door and locked it again, burned the keys in the fireplace. That night, Lorna made my favorite meal. She said she could tell I was feeling better, that she was so proud of me. I didn't eat. Neither did Dad, because he wasn't at dinner. I asked where he was. She said, "He's resting." But his car was still in the driveway. His shoes were by the door. His phone was buzzing on the counter. I went to his room. The bed was empty, but the sheets were wet, and something was wriggling under the pillow. I didn't look. I ran to my room, locked the door, stayed awake all night, listening to Lorna's soft humming and the dragging sound outside my door. At sunrise, I crept out. The house was silent, no sign of Lorna. I grabbed my backpack and went for the front door. It was sealed shut. No knob, no hinges, just wall. All the windows were bricked over from the outside. The phone was dead. My cell had no service. The walls began to breathe, slow and steady like a sleeping lung. Then I heard her voice behind me. "You're not ready to leave yet." I turned. She wasn't Lorna anymore. Her skin was too loose. Her smile was too wide. Her eyes were all pupil, black and bottomless. "You're almost perfect," she whispered. "Almost ready." Then she opened her mouth, wider and wider, until her jaw unhinged, until the scream inside came pouring out, not from her throat, but from everywhere. The walls, the floor, the air, all screaming in 1,000 tiny voices. Children's voices, begging, crying, laughing, and underneath it all, my father's voice, calling my name. I ran, down the hall, through the bathroom, up into the attic, but it wasn't the attic anymore. It was the basement. The mirror waited for me. I saw myself in it, not as I was, but pale, empty-eyed, smiling, like her, like the others, and I realized what she was. Not a woman, not a stepmom, not anything with a name. She was something ancient, something that mimics mothers, that steps into their skin and waits until we're weakest, until we're sad, alone, vulnerable. She doesn't raise children. She harvests them, builds her own little perfect family inside the mirror, and I was next. I don't remember how I got out, only that I woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed. They said a neighbor found me outside, barefoot, covered in blood and ash, muttering nonsense. The house was gone. Burned down to the foundation, no trace of my father, no trace of her. They said the fire started in the basement. They asked me where I was. I said nothing. I was placed in temporary care, then a foster home, then another. But some nights I wake to soft humming outside my window, no matter where I am. and I see her reflection in the glass, smiling, waiting, still calling herself Mom. The exhibit room. The Harrogate Museum of Human Curiosities wasn't listed on any map. I found it while driving home from a friend's wedding, lost on winding back roads through a town that didn't seem to have a name. The sky had turned the color of old bruises, and the car's GPS just spun like a compass in a magnet storm. Then I saw the sign. Harrogate Museum, open dusk to dawn. I should have kept driving, but I needed directions. Maybe gas. A bathroom. And the museum's lantern-lit porch looked welcoming, old-fashioned, quiet. A mistake. The front room was like any small-town museum. Cracked tiles, moth-bitten carpet, too many mannequins dressed in clothes no one ever wore. A woman behind the front desk smiled without showing teeth. "Admission is free," she said, "but you must stay until sunrise." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. She didn't blink. Her eyes were glassy, like taxidermy. "Enjoy the exhibits." The first room was called the Hall of Forgotten Professions. Glass cases lined the walls, tools, outfits, letters from people long dead. A blacksmith's scorched apron, a match girl's wooden shoes, a chimney sweep's soot-covered cap. In the center of the room stood a mannequin dressed in a plague doctor's robes, beaked mask and all. As I passed, it turned to face me. Just slightly. I spun around, but it hadn't moved, except now it was pointing toward the next room, the children's gallery. Toys sat behind glass, spinning tops, cracked dolls, wooden teethers with bite marks. The lights buzzed overhead. I felt a headache blooming behind my eyes. Then I noticed the girl. She stood at the far end of the room in a white lace dress, staring at an empty cradle. Her hair was dark. Her hands trembled. I called out. She didn't move, but when I blinked, she was gone. The cradle was filled. Something inside it writhed beneath a sheet. I didn't look. I left the room, and the lights behind me went out. The hallway stretched too far, longer than the building could be. The carpet grew damp, the lights dimmed. Ahead, I saw the next exhibit, Artifacts from the Lost. A narrow room of glass pedestals, each holding a personal item. A single glove, a cracked mirror, a hairbrush filled with long black strands. One pedestal held a Polaroid of me, standing in the hallway. I hadn't taken it, and yet the background in the photo showed a room I hadn't entered yet. But the woman in the photo, standing behind me, I felt her breath on my neck. I ran. The doors wouldn't open. I screamed for help. No one came. Back at the front desk, the woman was gone. Her chair was empty, but in her place sat a new exhibit sign. Live display, visitor 2467. A glass case behind the counter was fogged with breath. From the inside, something moved behind the glass. I turned and bolted into the only room left unvisited. The exhibit room, and the door shut behind me. It was circular, mirrored walls, flickering candles, and in the center, a chair, old, strapped, waiting. I backed away. The mirrors began to ripple, like water, and reflections stepped out of them. Each one was me, but not quite. One had no eyes, one had stitched lips, one dragged torn feet and bled with every step. They surrounded me, spoke in one voice. "You've seen too much." I tried to run. Hands grabbed me, pulled me into the chair, straps coiled around my wrists and ankles like vines, and then pain. White hot. Behind my eyes, inside my teeth, I screamed. The mirrors shattered, and the world blinked out. I woke at sunrise on the side of the road. My car sat beside me, keys in the ignition. A sign behind me read, "Thank you for visiting Harrogate." The museum was gone. No building, no path, just forest. But in my pocket was a slip of paper. On it, a list of names, all crossed out, except the last one. Visitor 467, exhibit pending. And I swear, when I pass a mirror now, sometimes my reflection doesn't follow. Open all night. I was 3 hours into a long night drive when I saw the gas station. It blinked into view like it had always been there. Fluorescent lights humming above rusting pumps, a flickering sign that read "Open all night," and a single car parked beside the building, covered in dust like it hadn't moved in years. There hadn't been anything for miles. No towns, no other cars, no cell service. Just this gas station, sitting alone under a sky that looked too heavy to fall. I pulled in. My tank was near empty, and I figured I could at least get directions or maybe a coffee. The air was dead quiet. No wind, No insects, just the faint buzz of the sign and the low hum of the lights above. I stepped out of my car. As soon as my foot hit the ground, the gas station door opened, slowly, deliberately. A man stood in the doorway, tall, pale, thin as fence wire. His eyes were gray, almost silver, and they didn't blink when he spoke. "Pump's broken, but we've got coffee." I tried to smile, tried to ask for directions. He didn't answer. He just turned and walked back inside. I followed. The inside was worse than the outside. The overhead lights buzzed like angry flies. The floor tiles were cracked and sticky. The fridges held rows of drinks that hadn't existed in decades, glass bottles with names I didn't recognize, some written in languages I couldn't place. A rack of beef jerky looked mummified. The coffee machine steamed behind the counter, but the glass pot was full of something too thick to be coffee. The man gestured to it without turning around. "Fresh pot." I shook my head. "I'm just looking for directions. Or maybe a phone. My signal dropped a while back." He nodded slowly. Then he pointed, behind me, to a payphone in the far corner. I hadn't seen it when I walked in. It looked too clean, too new, like it had been installed 5 minutes ago. I picked up the receiver. No dial tone, just static, then a voice, a whisper. Low, distant, and familiar. My voice. "You shouldn't be here." I dropped the phone, turned to leave. The door was gone, just a wall. Shelves where the entrance had been. The man behind the counter hadn't moved. "You're inside now," he said. I walked the aisles, looking for another exit, another window, anything. The rows went on too far. Aisles stretched into shadows that didn't end. I passed cans of food that pulsed faintly, like they had heartbeats. A jar of pickled eggs turned to follow me with something that looked like an eye. I ran, turned corners, tried to retrace my steps, came back to the same aisle. Every time. And now the man behind the counter wasn't alone. Others had joined him. People, or at least things that wore people's faces. Their skin hung too loose, their mouths were too wide, their eyes were wrong. They smiled when I saw them, and in one voice they said, "Pump's working now." I bolted back outside. The door was there again. The lot was different. The sign was gone. My car was gone. And in its place, at pump number 4, was a new car. Just like mine. Same make, same color, same dent on the fender, but covered in frost. And behind the wheel was me. Frozen. Mouth open, eyes wide, a receipt stuck to the windshield. One fill-up, one soul. I stumbled back, turned toward the road, except there was no road. Just black, not darkness. Black. A wall of it. Like paint poured from the sky. I screamed. But the sound didn't leave my mouth. It curled inward, like everything else here. Pulled in. Swallowed. Trapped. The man was behind me again, closer this time. His eyes were gone, just holes. "We're open all night," he whispered. "And you're our favorite customer." I don't remember how long I ran. Time isn't right here. Clocks spin backward. The moon never rises. I find doors sometimes. Sometimes they lead to other aisles, sometimes to memories. I once opened a cooler door and saw my childhood bedroom. My mom standing in the doorway, calling me for dinner. I cried. She didn't see me. She peeled off her skin instead, hung it on a hook, and walked away. I think I'm part of the staff now. I wear the uniform. I greet the next ones when they come through the door. I pour the coffee. And when they ask for directions, I smile without blinking and say, "Pump's broken, but we've got coffee." Because once you've been inside the station, you never really leave. The carnival that comes at night. It arrived without warning. No flyers, no trucks, no music blaring through town. Just one morning, there it was, set up in the empty field off County Road 9. A rusted Ferris wheel turning slow as a heartbeat. A carousel that squealed like it remembered pain. Striped tents swaying in the breeze that didn't blow anywhere else. People said it had always been there. Others swore the land was empty the day before. No one saw them build it. But everyone saw the sign. Midnight Carnival, admission free, come alone. I didn't plan to go. I had heard the stories, whispers around school, about kids who came back, different, smiling too wide, eyes that didn't blink, or kids who never came back at all. They said it only opened at midnight, only for those who walked in alone. If you tried to follow someone else, the gate would vanish before your eyes. If you tried to leave with someone, the shadows would take care of it. I wasn't planning to go. But that night, I heard the music. A thin, reedy tune carried on no wind. A Calliope's dying gasp. It came from nowhere. It came from inside me. And before I knew it, I was walking down County Road 9, flashlight in hand, pajamas under my coat, heart hammering like a second pulse. The entrance was lit by burning bulbs that didn't flicker. And the gate was open. Waiting. Shh. No one greeted me, but everything moved. The Ferris wheel turned empty. The carousel spun, the horses twitching beneath peeling paint. Games played themselves. Balloons popped with no darts, bells rang with no mallets, dolls grinned without strings. And the laughter, it didn't come from people. It came from behind things. From shadows too tall, from places your eyes slid away from. I turned to leave. The gate was gone. The path behind me, gone. Just tents, just spinning lights. Just me. Alone, like the sign said. The first tent was red and gold. The flap opened on its own. Inside, a fortune teller sat behind a table. She didn't speak, just slid a card toward me. It was blank, until I touched it. Then words appeared, scrawled in something too red to be ink. You've already been chosen. I stepped back. The tent was empty. The table was gone. Just mirrors now. Hundreds of them. Each showing me, but not quite. Some had no eyes, some had too many. Some weren't me at all. I ran. The mirrors laughed. The laughter followed. The next tent was silent. Inside, a stage, empty. Then the lights came on, a spotlight, and I was in it, alone. Chairs filled themselves. Silhouettes clapped with hands that bent the wrong way. A voice boomed. Tonight's act, the boy who trembled. And I did, because I couldn't move, couldn't run, and the curtains on either side pulled back, revealing me. Hanging from strings, puppet versions, dozens of them. Each one acting out moments from my life, crying alone, screaming in the dark, wishing someone would love me. The crowd laughed, the strings snapped, and the puppets fell, still smiling. One turned its head toward me. "We'll take your place when you leave," it whispered. I fled again, and the tent collapsed behind me. Every path curved back into the carnival. No exits, only new horrors. A maze of hallways filled with whispers of people I knew, begging for help or accusing me of things I hadn't done. A ride called the Spinner, which showed you how you'd die, but only if you didn't get off. I passed a boy holding a cotton candy stick. His face had no mouth, but his eyes pleaded with me as he dissolved into pink sugar. And above it all, the sound of a Calliope winding tighter and tighter, building toward something, a finale. Then I saw the final tent. Black and white, stripes like prison bars. The flap opened on its own. Inside, silence, just one figure. The ringmaster, 7 feet tall, no face, just a white mask, painted with a grin too wide. He tipped his hat without touching it, spoke without a mouth. Every carnival needs a star. I shook my head. He raised a hand, and behind him a curtain opened, revealing a cage. And inside the cage was me. Eyes wide, mouth sewn shut, beating against the bars. The ringmaster smiled wider. "You've been such a good audience," he said, and clapped. Once. The ground opened beneath me. I fell through blackness, spinning, screaming, choking on cotton candy and smoke and laughter. Then I woke up, in my bed, morning light, safe. For a moment, I thought it had been a dream, until I saw the ticket, pinned to my pillow, old, yellowed, stamped with wax. Admit 1, Midnight Carnival, next performance tonight. And in the distance, faint but rising, the sound of music. The silence between stars. The distress signal came from deep within Sector 19, a stretch of space known among long haulers as the Black Hollow, a place most avoided, not because of any law or hazard, but because nothing ever came back out. Nothing but static. And now, the signal. Faint, looping, old-style comms. Repeating one phrase in a cracked human voice, "Help us. We are not alone." Captain Reeve wasn't one to chase ghosts, but protocol was protocol. The Alyssa Marrow was the nearest vessel. We had to respond. I was on the bridge when we dropped out of warp. Nothing but stars, empty black. And then, the ship, drifting unpowered, lit only by the occasional flicker of emergency lights from within. Designation, Odyssey 2. Missing for 17 years. Declared lost with all hands. Except now it sat before us. Not damaged, not broken. Just waiting. Docking was smooth. Too smooth. Almost like it wanted us to come aboard. I was part of the 5-person boarding crew. We entered through the auxiliary hatch. Flashlights cutting through the stale dark. The air inside was breathable but wrong. Dry, too still, and carrying the faint scent of metal and rot. We expected chaos. Bodies. Signs of struggle. But the corridors were pristine, polished, silent, like a museum of the dead. No crew, no blood, no signs of anything, except everything was in its place. Even the captain's chair on the bridge sat neatly made, waiting. We split up to sweep the ship. Harris and Lee took the lower decks. Marano went to engineering. I stayed on the bridge with Reeve, trying to access the logs. They were corrupted, entire months missing, dates looping endlessly, entries overwritten with static. But one file remained intact, audio only. Reeve played it. It started with laughter, crew voices, normal banter. Then a voice, calm, female, distant, not part of the crew. It said, "We are inside now." Then came the screaming, the tearing, the wet sounds of something too fast, too many limbs, too much hunger. Reeve shut it off. We sat in silence. Then my comm buzzed. Harris's voice. Crackling. Panicked. "Sir, we found something. Medbay. You need to see this." The medbay doors were sealed when we got there. We forced them open. Inside was a message, scrawled across every wall, every surface, in blood and what looked like fingernail gouges. "Don't listen to it. Don't look at it. Don't let it out." And on one of the tables, a crew member. Still alive. Barely. Eyes sewn shut with wire, ears plugged with melted plastic, heart monitor blinking slow and steady. His name tag read R. Connors, one of the Odyssey 2's engineers, missing 17 years. Reeve moved closer, reaching out. Connors opened his mouth and screamed without sound, screamed with everything he had. Then flatlined. The lights flickered. The sound system clicked on, and we heard it. That voice again. "You're listening now." Marano stopped responding next. Then Harris and Lee. We found Harris an hour later, curled in a crawl space, eyes gone, fingers chewed down to bone. He was smiling, a wide, unnatural grin stretching too far across his face. Something whispered through the vents above us. We weren't alone, not even close. We tried to leave. Docking clamps disengaged, but the hatch wouldn't open. Reeve slammed the controls again and again. The system just repeated, "Airlock sealed, observation in progress." Observation. We weren't rescuers. We were specimens. We bunkered in the command deck, guns drawn, lights flickering. Then Marano's voice came through the intercom. Except it wasn't Marano. It was her voice, but not her words. "Come to engineering. I fixed it. You can go home now." Reeve shook his head. "She's gone. That's not her." And yet I stood. I didn't want to, but my legs moved on their own, toward the corridor, toward the voice. Reeve tackled me, pinned me down. In my head, the voice laughed. "You're such good listeners." Reeve didn't make it. I don't know what took him. I never saw it, only heard the sound like bones snapping underwater. Now I'm alone, wandering the halls of the Odyssey 2. The lights follow me. The voice never stops. Sometimes it's my mother. Sometimes it's Reeve. Sometimes it's me, begging to be let out. The only place it's quiet is the medbay. I've wired my eyes shut, blocked my ears, just like Connors. The pain keeps it at bay, keeps me from listening, keeps it from fully crawling in. But I don't have long. The ship's moving now. Engines fired without a pilot. It's returning to known space. Back toward home. Back toward others who can listen. If you receive this message, don't come for us. Don't dock. Don't listen. Burn us before it finds a new voice to wear. The apartment next door. I moved into 6B on a rainy Thursday, lugging cardboard boxes through narrow stairwells while the fluorescent hallway lights buzzed like dying flies. The building was old. Yellowed wallpaper, carpet that reeked faintly of mildew, and walls so thin you could hear the elevator sigh in its shaft. But it was cheap, and I didn't have many options. I met my neighbor that night. A soft knock on my door just after midnight. When I opened it, a man stood there. Mid-40s, hair slicked back like it hadn't been washed in days, wearing a sweater 2 sizes too big. He smiled, teeth yellow and crooked. "Hi," he said. "Name's Mr. Alden. I live in 6A. Just wanted to welcome you to the building." "Thanks," I said, forcing a polite smile. "I'm Jamie." He nodded, eyes lingering a little too long. "If you ever need anything," he said, "I'm always home." Then he turned and disappeared into his apartment, the door shutting with a sound like a throat being cleared. I locked mine behind me. The first night, I heard noises through the wall, not normal apartment sounds. No music, no television, no footsteps, just humming, low, tuneless, like a lullaby hummed without care, and then a dragging sound like something heavy being pulled across the floor. Sometimes there were knocks, rhythmic, deliberate. I told myself it was plumbing or an old fridge, but the humming continued every night, always around 2 a.m., and it never stopped at the same time. A week later, I got curious. I knocked on Alden's door. No answer. I knocked again. Nothing. I was about to leave when I heard something shift behind the door, slow, like someone had crawled across the floor and pressed their ear against it. Then a whisper, too quiet to fully hear, but just loud enough to chill the blood in my spine. I left. Didn't knock again. One night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to tapping. Not on the wall, on the window. I live on the 6th floor. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. The tapping continued, soft, deliberate. 3 knocks, pause. 3 knocks again. I crept to the window and peeled back the curtain. No one there. Just condensation on the glass and 5 smudged fingerprints. From the outside. The next morning, I found a note slid under my door. No envelope, just a scrap of paper, shaky handwriting. You should stop watching me. He doesn't like that. No name, no signature. I ran to the building manager, asked who lived in 6A. She frowned, tapped a pen on her desk. No one's in 6A, she said. Been empty for almost a year. Last guy went missing. Police couldn't find anything. I blinked. What about Mr. Alden? She shook her head. No Alden in the building. I didn't sleep that night. The humming returned, louder now, and the dragging sound closer. I bought a small camera. Slid it into the air vent facing the adjoining wall. Set it to record overnight. What I saw the next morning made me throw up. At 2:07 a.m., the wall opened. Not like a door. Like flesh. The plaster split like skin peeling apart, revealing a hole that pulsed like a throat, and something crawled out. Not a man. Not exactly. It wore Alden's sweater, but its limbs were too long, elbows bending backward. Its face hung loose, like someone had draped skin over an empty frame. It didn't walk. It slithered, and it came right up to the vent. It stared into the camera for 5 full minutes. Then it smiled and whispered, "Now we're neighbors." The feed cut to static. I tried to leave that day, grabbed a bag, ran to the elevator, but the buttons didn't work. None of them lit up. The doors wouldn't open. The stairs were gone. Literally gone, just wall where the stairwell had been. I went back to 6B. My key didn't fit anymore, but the door opened anyway, and inside, everything was wrong. The furniture was mine, but it was moldy, warped, like it had been left in water for weeks. My bed had handprints on the sheets, deep, pressed in as if something had lain there for hours. The humming started again, from inside the closet. I didn't check. I sat in the hallway until morning. The building manager didn't remember me. Swore I'd never signed a lease. The apartment? Vacant. But she gave me the key again, cheerfully. Maybe the last tenant left it in the Dropbox, she said. She smiled, and I noticed her eyes didn't match. One was mine. I left, or tried to, but the road outside only led back to the building. No matter where I turned, no matter how far I drove, always back to 6B, always back to Mr. Alden. That was 2 weeks ago, I think. Time feels strange now. The days are short, the nights are endless, and the walls, they breathe. Sometimes he knocks from inside them. Sometimes he's already in the room. I don't sleep anymore, but I still hear the humming, low, constant. And last night I found a new note. It said, "You're always home now too." And below it, written in a child's shaky scrawl, "I hope the next neighbor's nice." Last train to Grenton. It was past midnight when I boarded the train. The platform at Holloway Station was deserted, save for an old man sleeping upright on a bench and the station clock, frozen at 12:13. I never taken this train before. It wasn't on any schedule I'd checked, but the overhead screen simply read, "Grenton, 1 a.m. on time." Grenton was my hometown. I hadn't been back in years, not since I left for university, then work, then life. But tonight something pulled me back, something unspoken. My phone had buzzed with a message hours earlier, one I never saw sent, from unknown. "You need to come home. He's waiting." No name, no number, just that. I told myself it was a prank, but I packed a bag anyway. And now, here I was, stepping onto the last train of the night, its doors opening with a long, tired hiss. The inside of the carriage was dim. Old-fashioned seats, green velvet, iron armrests, brass fittings dulled with time. No advertisements, no train map, no conductor. Just a few passengers, spaced out and silent. I sat by the window. Outside, the platform stretched too far, much farther than it should have. It faded into darkness like a hallway that never ends. The train began to move, and the lights overhead flickered. None of the other passengers looked up. I tried to check my phone. No service, not even Wi-Fi. The message was gone. My battery dropped from 54% to 1% in seconds, then died. The window beside me no longer showed the outside world, just blackness, like the train was cutting through a void. We passed no stations, no signs, just darkness and the low hum of the engine. The man across from me turned his head. He looked familiar. His skin was pale and thin, almost translucent. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. I leaned forward. He mouthed 3 words, "Don't get off." I blinked. He was gone. His seat was empty. I stood up. Everyone around me was gone. The car was silent. Too silent. I moved to the next carriage. The door groaned as I opened it. Inside, dozens of people stood shoulder to shoulder, but their feet didn't touch the floor. They hovered, eyes closed, hands twitching as if dreaming. Their mouths moved in perfect unison. A whisper, layered and overlapping. I leaned closer. They were chanting something. My name. Over and over. I slammed the door shut. Returned to my seat. It was occupied now, by a boy, no older than 10. He looked at me. His eyes were completely white. He handed me something. A ticket stub. It had my name printed on it. Ha. One way. Non-transferable. Final. I tried to ask him who he was. He whispered, "I remember you." Then his skin crumbled like ash in the wind, and he was gone. Only the ticket remained. The train slowed. The intercom crackled to life. A voice spoke, distorted and broken. "Next stop, Grenton." I stood. My heart pounded. I wasn't ready. I didn't know why, but something inside screamed not to get off. The doors opened. Grenton station was empty, lit by flickering bulbs that swung despite no wind. The platform was wet with old blood. A sign above the exit read, "You left, he stayed." A child's toy sat on the bench, a stuffed bear missing one eye, my old bear, from my childhood, the one we buried with my brother. I stepped back. The doors began to close, but something climbed aboard. Something wrong. Tall, wrapped in rotting cloth, a face hidden in shadows. It smelled like grave dirt and rain. It sat across from me. Its voice sounded like my brother's. "You left me behind." I was 8 when it happened. My brother fell into the river behind our house. I ran. I didn't help. I watched him go under. I said nothing for hours. By the time they found him, it was too late, and I left, moved far away, never came home. Never visited his grave, never said goodbye, until now. The thing leaned closer, its face almost human, almost him. "You can stay. We can ride together, forever." I closed my eyes. When I opened them, I was the only one in the car. The train raced through the dark. The window reflected my face, and behind me his, still smiling, still waiting. I don't know how long I've been here. Hours, days, time doesn't work right anymore. The train never stops. The passengers change. Sometimes they whisper my name, sometimes they take my shape, sometimes they cry like he did. I never sleep. The lights never stay on, and every few hours the voice returns. "Next stop, Grenton." But the doors never open again. I missed my chance, and now I ride forever. It started with an email I shouldn't have opened. Subject line, bug report, fatal encounter, response 2. No sender, no signature, no body text, just a single attachment, a .zip folder titled response2.exe. At first I assumed it was spam or malware, but curiosity, well, it's a hell of a thing. I was a QA tester for an indie studio that had recently gone under. We'd been working on a roguelike dungeon crawler called Fatal Encounter. Standard stuff. Procedural levels, permadeath, grim soundtrack, blood and bones. We never finished it. The game became unstable toward the end. Random crashes, memory leaks, and occasional audio glitches, garbled whispers that weren't in any build files. The project lead vanished one night. His apartment locked from the inside. Code frozen on his monitor. One last commit on GitHub. Response2.cpp. That branch was locked. No one touched it after that. Until now. I extracted the file and ran it inside a sandbox. The window popped open instantly. No title screen. Just pixelated darkness and a flickering torchlight effect. I recognized the engine. Our engine. But the art was different. Wrong. The walls were veined with something red, pulsating. Shadows twitched when they shouldn't. The player's sprite was a figure I didn't recognize. Tall, distorted, no face. It moved without input. I watched for a minute, then the screen glitched, flashed a single frame, a photo of me, at my desk. I yanked the Ethernet cable from my PC. The game kept running. The figure stopped in front of a door. On it, response 1 received, proceed to response 2. The door opened on its own. Inside, a table, a single item, an envelope. The game made me click it. Inside was a note you were supposed to test. Instead, you watched. You left it open. You let it out. Now you will fix it. The screen went black. Then response 2 initiated. My monitor turned off. The lights in my apartment dimmed. And I heard a voice from my speakers, low and cold and close. You're already in the game. I shut everything down, physically unplugged the tower, went to bed, had nightmares, labyrinths made of skin, eyes in the walls, voices whispering fragments of code I hadn't heard in years. In the dream, the exit door was labeled patch complete. I woke up with bloody fingernail gouges in my palm. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A notification from an app I'd never downloaded. Fatal encounter. Session resumes in 0030. I tried to delete it, wouldn't uninstall. The countdown reached 0. My phone screen filled with static, then showed the same sprite, faceless, tall, standing at my front door, in-game but rendered in real time. Then it knocked. I heard it from my actual front door. 3 soft knocks, I didn't answer. The app showed response failed, restarting protocol. I drove across town, stayed with an old friend, told him I was having a breakdown. He humored me, let me crash on his couch. That night, he opened his laptop, paused. What the hell is this? He asked. On his screen, the same game. Fatal encounter. But he'd never downloaded it. The sprite was in a new room now, his living room. Same couch, same blanket, same lamp I was sitting under. I stood slowly, the sprite turned faceless. It raised one hand and waved. I threw the laptop across the room. The screen cracked. Didn't stop the game, it just changed. The sprite now had my face. Not pixelated. Real. Live feed level clarity, bleeding from the mouth, smiling. It typed something across the top of the screen. Response 2 accepted. You will spread us. My friend screamed. He vanished. One frame he was there. Next frame, static. I ran. The laptop still played the game. No power cord, no battery. Back home, my entire rig was on again. 3 monitors, glowing red. Lines of code scrolled across all 3. If user equals infected, launch response 3. And then, death is not an error. It is a patch note to shut it off. My keyboard burned hot under my hands, and the speakers whispered, where you go, we follow. What you open, we enter. Now, it's everywhere. USB sticks appearing in people's bags, QR codes on sidewalks that auto-install the game. Someone even streamed a playthrough on Twitch before their webcam glitched and showed something standing behind them. They haven't streamed since. The subreddit's gone. The Discord, corrupted. Every post ends with the same 3 words, we are playing. You don't have to run the game anymore. You just have to see it. And now that you've read this story, well, welcome to Response 2. After hours. No one remembers when the Hollow Pines Mall first opened. It sat at the edge of town, nestled in a wooded dip that seemed to swallow sunlight no matter the season. Everyone in Greystone just accepted it had always been there. An aging behemoth of concrete and glass with too many corridors and too few customers. Most of the storefronts were empty, those still open barely scraped by. One dusty shoe store, a grimy food court kiosk, and a candle shop that smelled like wax and regret. And then there was level B2. Officially, the mall had no basement, but every janitor, every rent-a-cop who'd worked there more than a week whispered about it. An unlisted level beneath the service elevators. The kind of place only drunks and daredevils tried to find. I was 17 when I took the dare. It was the night of the mall lock-in. A stupid tradition where local teens spent the night in the abandoned wing, pretending to be braver than they were. Flashlights, pizza, urban legends. A group of us broke off around 2 a.m., drunk on energy drinks and egged on by the echoing dares of the others. There were 5 of us, me, my cousin Drew, twin girls from our school, and a quiet guy named Miles, who always wore headphones even when they weren't plugged into anything. The plan was simple. Get to the bottom of the service elevator, prove it was just old storage, and come back heroes. But when we pressed the elevator's button, something new appeared beneath it. A glowing key symbol. Miles, grinning like an idiot, held up a brass mall key he'd stolen from the janitor's cart earlier that night. He turned it in the panel. The elevator hummed. The display flickered. Shh. B2, staff only. The doors closed. No one spoke on the way down. It didn't feel like going down. It felt like being pulled sideways through a tunnel of wool and static. When the doors finally opened, the lights outside were dim red, like emergency lighting during a fire drill. Everything smelled damp, old. The corridor ahead was lined with mannequins, not arranged in any order, just placed, facing walls, corners, each other. Their limbs were wrong, too many elbows, joints bent the wrong way. Some had faces, not plastic molds, real faces. Mimics of people we knew. Drew's ex, my mother, Miles. The one that looked like me didn't have eyes. We should have gone back up, but the elevator doors were already gone. Not closed. Gone. Just wall behind us. We ran. Took turns at random, deeper into the level. The mall below the mall stretched far too wide. Storefronts were rotted mockeries. Toys and joys filled with broken doll parts. A bookstore where every page was blank and damp to the touch. A food court stall serving slabs of meat that pulsed faintly when we got near. No people, no sounds, except one. Footsteps, always just behind us. Head dragging, getting closer. We lost Miles near a carousel. Yes, a carousel. Indoors, underground. It turned slowly, though none of us touched it. The horses were bound in barbed wire, mouths open in silent screams. We heard Miles shout something, then static, then nothing. His headphones lay on the floor, melted. The twins refused to move after that. They stood arm in arm, whispering prayers, faces pale. When the lights above flickered, they were gone. No scream, no sign, just two perfect mannequins in their place, still holding hands. Drew ran. I followed. The mall twisted now, escalators that spiraled into ceilings, floor tiles with eyes that blinked when stepped on, exit signs pointing back into the dark. We finally stopped at a security kiosk. A map lay behind the cracked glass. "You are here," marked with a blinking red dot. We weren't near the elevator anymore. We were under the parking lot, 2 levels below it. And there were more dots now, 4 total. Ours, one approaching fast, and the 4th, stationary, right in the center of the map. The atrium, we made for it. As we ran, we passed mirrors, old ones. Cracked, mismatched frames, none of them showed us. They showed what was following. A tall thing, gaunt, its head split open like a mouth. It moved with insect-fast bursts. It wore the mall's staff uniform. Its name tag read, Greeter. And it was closing in. We reached the atrium. It was a vast circular space, far too big to be underground. A glass dome stretched above, showing only shifting shadows behind the glass. In the center, a fountain of blood, or oil, or both, and something standing beside it. Not human, but once was. Its face was an amalgamation of the mannequins. Its hands were the same color as mine. It turned and whispered, "You came home." Drew pulled me back. The floor beneath us began to breathe. The walls blinked, and the greeter arrived. It didn't walk. It cracked across the tiles like breaking bone. It reached for Drew first. He didn't scream. He just crumpled, folded into a mannequin. Same hoodie, same shoes, mouth sewn shut, still breathing. I ran, found a janitor's door, inside. The elevator. Real this time, or as real as anything could be down there. I hit every button. The doors closed. The last thing I saw before they did was my reflection in the polished steel. Behind me, standing still. Me, but smiling wider. I woke in the food court, lights bright, mall bustling. No one noticed me lying there. Drew's name isn't in any records. The twins never existed. Miles? Found dead in a hotel 2 states over. Headphones melted. My phone was full of photos from the night, all blank, except one. A security cam frame. 5 of us entering the elevator, only one of us had a shadow. And now every night when I sleep, I hear the mall music start again, low, off key. And I feel the mannequins watching. One of them is starting to look like me. The painted smile. I was 7 the first time I saw Mr. Jingles. It was my birthday party, one of those chaotic suburban backyards filled with streamers, cupcakes, and sugar-fueled screams. My parents had hired a clown, even though I told them I didn't want one. "I hate clowns," I had said a dozen times, but they didn't listen. When he arrived, the backyard went quiet. His makeup was thick, crusted in the corners. Red smile painted impossibly wide, yellowed teeth behind it. The fabric of his costume looked damp, like it had been pulled from a trunk in a flooded basement. He didn't do tricks, he didn't juggle. He just stared at me. When my mom asked him to do balloon animals, he said, "No need. He already knows what I am." She laughed, nervously, but I didn't, because I did know. And every year after that, every birthday, Mr. Jingles showed up. Uninvited, unannounced, always just at the edge of the party. Never caught in photos, never seen by anyone but me. By age 12, I stopped celebrating my birthday, refused to have friends over, told my parents I didn't want cake, gifts, anything. They thought it was a phase, but I was trying to stop him from coming back. It didn't work. That year, he came to my window instead. It was just after midnight. I was lying in bed, trying to convince myself it was over, that maybe I'd imagined it all those years. Then came the squeak, that awful balloon rubber squeak, and I turned. There he was outside my second-story window, standing on nothing, just smiling. He held a balloon in one hand, but it wasn't a dog or a sword. It was a shape that looked wrong. Too many limbs, too many faces. He pressed it to the glass and whispered, "Time to laugh." That was the first year I heard the others. Laughter, but not mine. Children's laughter. Faint. Under my bed, inside the walls, sometimes crying, sometimes screaming, but always laughter in between. I stopped sleeping. By the time I was 17, I thought I was going insane. I'd moved to another state, started fresh, avoided mirrors, avoided birthdays. But on the night of July 23rd, my birthday, a balloon floated out of my closet. I didn't keep balloons. It rose slowly, scraping against the ceiling, then popped, and inside, teeth. Tiny, rotted baby teeth. They rained onto the floor in a soft plink, 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 and the laughter started again, this time closer. Then I saw the card, tucked under my pillow, white with a red balloon drawn in wax crayon. Inside, one sentence, "You're it." I started researching. Clown folklore, demon lore, urban legends. There were whispers online, threads about a Jingles figure that showed up in childhoods and never left. Some said he was an old circus performer who made a deal with something he didn't understand. Others said he wasn't ever human at all, a traveling grin that latched onto fear like a tick. He followed the birthdays. He followed the watchers. One post stuck with me. It simply said, "You don't invite Mr. Jingles. He chooses you, and once he does, you become part of the act." The account that posted it had been deleted. This year, I turned 25. I made a plan. I rented a motel off Highway 19, far from everyone I knew. No party, no cake, no witnesses. I sat in the middle of the room with a knife in one hand and a lighter in the other, waiting. The TV turned on by itself at midnight, black and white static, then a squeak. And through the screen, he stepped out. Mr. Jingles, taller now, thinner, neck twisted like a broken branch, paint cracked, eyes black and dripping. He didn't speak. He just opened his arms, and behind him, through the TV glass, I saw them. The children, dozens of them, mouths painted over, eyes blank, trapped in some eternal show. One of them reached forward. It was me, aged 7, still wearing my birthday hat. Jingles turned to me, and for the first time in 18 years, he spoke clearly. "Laugh, and they'll let you go. Cry, and you join the act." He offered a balloon. I took the knife and slashed at him. It passed through air. Then he wasn't there. The room was empty, except for the balloon still floating in the corner, and the laughter rising beneath the floorboards. I haven't slept since. Every reflection shows him. Every child's giggle turns my blood cold, and sometimes I see my younger self on missing posters in other towns. They all look like kids I never met, all of them smiling too wide, all of them gone. The last card I got said 1 more year. I don't know what happens when it runs out, but I know the circus never ends, not for me, not for him. Because now I carry the joke, and someday soon, I'll be the one holding the balloon. The ones who stayed. Everyone has that one friend group they outgrow, the ones you drift from after high school or a summer job, promising to stay in touch but never really meaning it. I had a group like that. We called ourselves the Core Four, me, Danny, Marcus, and Theo. We met in middle school detention, got close fast. Like the kind of close where you know every secret, every scar, every parent's schedule. We stayed tight through high school, always whispering about how we'd stick together forever. Only we didn't. After graduation, Danny went to art school in Chicago. Marcus moved to Oregon with his mom. Theo just kind of disappeared. His number stopped working. His Instagram went dark. We figured he was just being Theo, dramatic, always ghosting people. I stayed in our hometown, went to community college, worked nights at a liquor store. Life went on, until last month when I got a text from an unknown number. The core four, one last night, meet at the old field, midnight. No name, no context, but I knew who it was, and like an idiot, I went. The field was exactly the same, overgrown with that one rusted goalpost from when kids used to play soccer here, and they were all there. Danny, Marcus, even Theo. I didn't know whether to laugh or run. They looked exactly the same, not haven't aged much, the same. Exactly the same, like we'd stepped out of senior year yesterday. Same haircuts, same clothes. Danny even had the patched denim jacket she lost in 11th grade. No one mentioned it. We just hugged, joked, caught up like no time had passed. But it was off. All of it. The way they stood too still when not speaking. The way Marcus didn't blink, not once. The way Danny laughed at jokes I didn't make. I chalked it up to nostalgia and nerves. Told myself I was being paranoid. Then Theo spoke. Do you remember the game? We all fell quiet. Because we did. It wasn't a real game, just something we made up in freshman year back when Theo started bringing weird books to lunch. Old, leather-bound things with yellowed pages and symbols no one understood. We called it the circle game. You draw a ring in chalk, sit inside it, and say a phrase from the book. We bind, we bleed, we stay. Then you cut your hand and let it drip into the dirt. All four of you. We thought it was just edgy kid nonsense. But the night we did it, the air turned cold. Too cold for July, and the moon turned red. Just for a second. We laughed it off, called it a coincidence. But Theo started acting strange after that. Quiet, nervous. He'd flinch when he saw his reflection. He stopped going near the woods, and then he disappeared. Back in the field, he pulled something from his backpack. A can of chalk, 4 knives, and the book. That same old book. The cover still damp-looking. Still smelled like iron and mold. We're finishing it, he said. I didn't know it was unfinished, I replied. He stared at me like I'd asked if the sky was real. We bound, we bled, he said slowly, but we didn't stay. One of us left. I laughed awkwardly. Yeah, we all kinda... No, Danny cut in. You left. Something twisted in my stomach. That's not, I started. But Marcus stepped into the circle, then Danny, then Theo, all staring at me, waiting. You made the vow, Theo said. Now you're here to make it right. I should have run, but I stepped in. Just like before. Theo handed me the knife. The handle was warm. The metal pulsed. I cut my palm. The blood dripped into the circle. They did the same. As soon as the last drop hit the dirt, the world shifted. The stars vanished. The sky turned the color of rotting fruit. The trees around us groaned like they were breathing, and something moved in the dark beyond the field. Something tall. Watching. Theo began to chant in that ugly, twisting language from the book. I recognized one word, stay. The ground under my feet cracked. My vision blurred, and then I was back, standing in the field, alone, daylight, birds chirping, my phone buzzed, new notification, photo memories the core 4, 8 years ago today. I opened it. A picture of the 4 of us in the circle, smiling, laughing, but in the photo, I wasn't the one in the circle. I was standing outside it, watching. And in my place, standing in the circle was something with my face, smiling too wide, eyes too dark. I ran home, searched everything I could about the ritual, about the book. Nothing. No mentions, no records, until I found an old forum, archived and half-corrupted. One post stood out. They only need one to forget, one to break the vow, one to bring back. I'd broken it. I was the one who left, and they were never just a friend group. They were a binding. A cage, and now the cage is open. They've started showing up not in person, but in mirrors. Reflections of me surrounded by people who aren't there. Messages carved into the fogged glass after showers. We stayed. Why didn't you? My phone camera glitches when I'm alone, shows me laughing with unseen friends. Yesterday I found chalk on my doorstep, and the book in my bed, open to the last page. Blank except for one handwritten sentence. We bind, we bleed. Now you stay. I haven't left my apartment in days, because when I look outside, I see the field, and they're waiting. Room 12. It was supposed to be a quick stop. I'd been driving 16 hours straight, trying to outrun a breakup, a dead job, and the kind of silence that fills a car too long alone. My GPS rerouted me off the highway due to some accident up ahead, and before long, I found myself on a narrow 2-lane road with no lights and too many trees. Just past midnight, the neon sign flickered through the mist. Pine Shadows Motel. Vacancy. It looked like the kind of place serial killers dreamed of. One story. 12 rooms, U-shaped around a cracked parking lot. The office had that smell. Cigarettes, mildew, something sour under the counter. The man behind the desk didn't look up from his crossword. Cash only. 60 a night, you're in room 12. I didn't ask for it. He slid the key forward. It was already on the counter. Metal, not plastic. Old. No one ever does. Room 12 was at the far end of the lot. Half the lights were busted. The number on the door had been scratched off and rewritten in marker. Inside, the wallpaper peeled in long strips. The air conditioner wheezed. A single lamp buzzed with yellow light. No TV. No Wi-Fi. Just a rotary phone on the nightstand and a framed painting of a forest that looked too much like the one I'd just driven through. I collapsed on the bed, exhausted. The second I closed my eyes, the phone rang. I stared at it. No one had the number. It rang again. I picked it up, slow, no dial tone, just the sound of breathing. Long, shaky inhales, then, "Don't leave the room." Click. Silence. I stared at the receiver. Tried to laugh, but I couldn't, because the door had just locked itself, from the inside. I jiggled the knob. Nothing. The deadbolt clicked into place without me touching it. I checked the window, painted shut. Then the lamp flickered, and the forest painting changed. Where before there were empty trees, now there was something standing among them. Tall, human-shaped, but wrong. It wore a suit, but its face was blank, smoothed over like wet clay. I blinked. The figure was closer now. The next time I looked, it was inside the forest cabin painted in the background. A small shadow in the window. I yanked the painting off the wall, threw it face down on the carpet. Then the phone rang again. I didn't answer, but it spoke anyway, from the receiver, from the speaker. "You're in room 12. You don't leave room 12. The lights died. The air turned cold, and the closet door creaked open. There was a man inside, or what had once been a man. He was on his knees, skin paper white, eyes wide and dead. Dried blood ringed his mouth like he'd chewed his own lips away. He whispered, voice like wind through teeth. He watches. When you sleep, when you dream, he waits behind the walls. Then he screamed, but not at me, at the corner behind the bathroom door. I turned. There was nothing there. When I looked back, the closet was empty, except for scratch marks in the wood. Dozens. Hundreds. Like someone had tried to claw their way out for a very long time. I tried the phone again. Still dead. Tried the window. It cracked, but wouldn't break. Then the painting on the floor began to burn. Slowly, from the center outward. The flames didn't spread, they didn't smoke, but they revealed something as they ate through the image. A motel hallway. Room 12's door. Me, standing outside it. Only I wasn't alone. That thing, the faceless man, stood behind me in the painting. Reaching out, its fingers touched my shoulder in the image, and I felt it. In real life, ice cold, breathing at my neck. I spun. Nothing. Then the door unlocked. On its own, the bolt slid back with a gentle click and the knob turned. I should have run, but I didn't. I stepped into the hallway. It wasn't the same hallway I'd come through. The walls were wet, breathing, the carpet squished underfoot, red like pulp. Room numbers were out of order, 3, 7, 22, 12, 12, 12. Every door was room 12. Each one whispered my name as I passed. I picked one, opened it. Inside, my childhood bedroom. Same posters, same bunk bed, same crack in the ceiling shaped like a dog. And in the bed, sleeping, peaceful, until my eyes opened. Not mine, not anymore. Black pits, grinning too wide. The mouth opened and whispered, "Go back to sleep." I ran, sprinted down the hallway that never ended, the floor folding in on itself like intestines. The walls pulsed. Laughter echoed from behind every door. Finally, I found the lobby again. Same man behind the desk, still doing his crossword. "Didn't stay the night?" he asked, not looking up. "What the hell is this place?" I gasped. He shrugged. "Depends on what you bring with you." He handed me something. My car keys. They were slick with blood. I drove, didn't look back, didn't stop until sunrise, didn't breathe right for days, but I made it out, I think. Except sometimes I wake up back in room 12, just for a second, long enough to hear the phone ring, long enough to see him in the corner, long enough to remember I never actually checked out. Final round, they called it final round, and nobody knew where to watch it. No network, no streaming service, just rumors, whispers online. A single post on a dark corner of Reddit. If they send you the invitation, don't ignore it. Don't try to leave, just play. I thought it was some kind of marketing stunt. Viral horror content. ARGY maybe. Until the envelope arrived. No stamp, no address, just my name in red ink. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Congratulations, you've been selected for final round. Showtime midnight, channel 66. Do not tell anyone, do not leave your house, tune in. At the bottom, smeared like an afterthought, you've already agreed. I laughed it off, left it on the counter. But when the clock struck midnight, my TV turned off, no power, flickered on. Channel 66, no input, no cable, just static that slowly gave way to color bars, then a stage, red curtains, spotlights, and a host with a mannequin smile and eyes too wide. Ladies and gentlemen, he grinned, welcome to the final round, and tonight's lucky contestant is you. He pointed forward, right at me. I grabbed the remote, tried to shut the TV off. Nothing. I unplugged it. Still on. The screen shimmered. And then I wasn't in my living room anymore. I was on the stage. Same curtains, same lights, same host now standing beside me, smelling of wax and formaldehyde. Don't be shy, he whispered. You've been playing since the day you were born. Around us, the studio audience began to clap. Except they weren't clapping. Not really. Their hands were stiff, moving in sync. Like puppets. Their faces were masks. Lifelike, but wrong. Too perfect. Too smooth. Let's get to our first game, the host beamed. 2 truths and a lie. 3 screens lit up behind me. Each showed an image from my life. My childhood bedroom. My car, totaled in last year's accident. A woman's face, half familiar, half rotted. One of these, the host said, isn't real. Choose wisely or lose a finger. He chuckled like it was a joke. I pointed to the woman. I've never met her. Bzzzt. The stage buzzed with static. Wrong, the host said, almost sadly. That's your mother, the one you forgot after the fire. I screamed. Pain flared in my left hand. Blood dripped onto the studio floor. A finger gone. The audience clapped again. Round 2, the host sang. Let's play hide and seek. The stage split open. A hallway revealed itself, long, dimly lit, with too many doors. You hide, the host whispered, and if you're found, something joins you. I ran. Down the hallway, past us door after door, each one labeled with something cryptic. Regret, jealousy, guilt, 3:17 a.m. I ducked into one marked shame. It was a hospital room. Empty, except for the bed, and on it, me, strapped down, mouth sewn shut, eyes open, filled with tears. On the wall, monitors beeped softly. Each one showed a moment I'd buried deep. The lies, the betrayals, the nights I prayed for someone else's failure just to feel whole. Then came the knock. Soft, rhythmic. The door creaked open. Something crawled in. Not walked. Crawled. Its skin was made of game show tickets, stitched together. Its mouth was a spinning prize wheel, teeth like numbered pegs. It whispered, "Time's up." I screamed and woke back on stage, breathing hard. The host was smiling wider now. "Doing great," he chirped. "One more round." The lights dimmed. Smoke poured from the floor. The host raised one hand. "Final question," he said, "for everything." A final screen appeared. It showed my living room, my real one, right now. The camera panned to my couch. Someone was sitting there. Me, watching, smiling. "You have 2 choices," the host said. "Stay here and play forever, or take their place." I stepped toward the screen, watched as the other me turned to look directly at me, eyes pitch black, smile still growing. I screamed, "I choose." But I never got to finish. The lights cut out, the audience shrieked, and when they came back on, I was sitting on the couch, TV off, envelope gone, and in my hand, still bloody, 9 fingers. But I wasn't alone, because from the TV, faintly, I could hear the host again. "Next contestant. Ready to play?" The book that read back. It was almost 9 p.m. when I found Whispering Pages. I hadn't meant to end up in that part of town. My phone had died and the rain was coming down in sheets. I ducked into the first storefront with light in the window. A faded sign hung above the door, letters barely legible beneath layers of grime. Whispering Pages, rare and used books. The place smelled of wet paper and ancient wood. The kind of smell that clings to your coat and whispers secrets in your ear when you're alone. It was warm inside, despite the lack of visible heat, and the only sound was the slow tick of a grandfather clock in the corner, counting down something I didn't understand. There was no one at the counter, no sign of staff, just endless rows of leaning shelves and crooked ladders towering all the way up to a shadow-drenched ceiling. I should have left. But something about the place made me stay, like it had been waiting for me. I wandered past books with titles too worn to read. Some were chained shut with rusted links, others whispered when I brushed their spines. Yes, whispered. I leaned in once, and a brittle cover rasped, "Not that one." I flinched, laughed nervously. Old buildings creak, that's all. Then I found it, a thin volume tucked sideways between two encyclopedias. No title, just a plain black cover and a ribbon bookmark frayed at the end. I pulled it free. The moment my fingers touched it, the lights flickered. The clock stopped ticking, and the bookstore changed. The walls stretched taller. Shelves twisted, shifting positions like bones realigning. The air turned heavy, syrupy, filled with dust motes that danced in shapes just beyond recognition. I opened the book. The first page read, "Welcome, Morgan. We've been expecting you." I froze. That was my name, handwritten in elegant, looping script. I turned the page. It described me, down to my muddy shoes, the coffee stain on my left cuff, even the paper I'd gotten earlier that day. Word for word. I checked the cover again. Still blank. I turned to the next page. It read, "He stands alone in the heart of the store, unaware that he is not alone." The hairs on my neck rose. I looked up. Something moved in the aisle behind me. I spun. Nothing. But the book had changed again. Now the page said, "It waits in the travel section." I didn't want to know what it was. But my feet moved anyway, drawn, as if the book was leading me or pulling. The travel section was dimmer, the titles older. Places that didn't exist anymore, some that never had. Books titled Cities Under Skin, Tourism for the Recently Dead, Guide to Nowhere, Revised Edition. And in the center, a chair, rocking slowly. A man sat in it, reading. Or something shaped like a man. He wore a long coat made of stitched pages. His hands were quills, long and sharp. Where his face should have been was a blank cover, stretched over a skull. As I stepped closer, the book in my hand pulsed, warm, alive. The page turned on its own. "Don't speak to the archivist. Don't look him in the face. Don't. Too late." He looked up, and all the words I'd ever forgotten came rushing back in a single instant. Childhood stories, nightmares, whispered threats, lullabies from dreams I never remembered having. He spoke. His voice sounded like tearing paper and fire swallowing old letters. "You've taken the book." I couldn't speak. "You've turned its pages." I backed away, shaking my head. "Now you must finish it." He stood. Books slid off the shelves and onto the floor. The shelves themselves bent inward, forming a maze. I ran. The maze closed behind me. The book led me, page by page. Turn left at the Atlas of Hollow Roads. Run past the Dictionary of the Lost Tongue. Ignore the Isle of Autobiographies. They lie. The shelves whispered my name, mocking, pleading, laughing. I passed a mirror. My reflection was gone. Another page turned. He reaches the biography section, heart-pounding, blood-loud. The biography aisle was filled with books bound in skin. All of them had my name. Some were blank. Some had titles like The Year He Never Escaped, The Night He Screamed Too Late, and Volume 4, The Devouring. I dropped the book, tried to run, but the floor had become pages, slippery, crinkling, grasping. I fell, and the book opened in front of me. Final page. Blank. Waiting. The archivist stepped into view, towering over me. "You must write the ending," he rasped. "I don't know how," I stammered. "Then stay here until you do." He handed me a quill made of bone and vanished. That was 2 nights ago, I think. Time is strange in here. I've written a few lines, crossed them out. Every wrong sentence changes the shelves, makes the lights flicker, makes something crawl between the bookcases. I don't know what happens when I write the right ending, but I know what happens if I stop. They whisper it over and over from the pages on the floor. Finish the story, or become one. It started with a notification. One new friend request, Alyssa Marrow. I didn't recognize the name. No mutual friends. No profile picture, just a gray silhouette. Her cover photo was an old house surrounded by leafless trees. It looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. I should have ignored it. But something about the request tugged at me. Maybe curiosity, maybe boredom. I clicked accept. The message came seconds later. "Thank you. I've been waiting for you." I stared at the screen. I clicked on her profile. Still no posts, no photos, just that same house in the background. And the About section? It read, "Born October 31st, 1996. Died October 31st, 2014. My stomach tightened. I thought it was some weird prank, an edgy, fake account. I blocked her. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Message request from Alyssa Marrow. The profile was gone, but the message was there. "You shouldn't have done that." Then she sent a photo. I didn't want to open it, but I did. It was my house, the front porch, taken from the edge of the driveway. From just minutes ago, the lights in my room were still on. I ran outside. Nothing but empty night. No cars, no footsteps, no one standing in the dark. I called the police. They came, took a report, suggested it was a sick prank, told me to stay off social media for a while. I deleted the app. I locked my doors. I tried to sleep. At 3:17 a.m., I heard my phone buzz. One notification. Facebook, Alyssa tagged you in a post. My hands shook as I tapped the screen. There was no app on my phone, but the screen changed anyway. Opened the Facebook app, except it wasn't the real app. The icons were off. The font was wrong. Everything slightly older, like an old version from a decade ago. I tapped the notification. The post read, "He watched her die, and now she watches him." The photo attached was of me, 12 years old, at a Halloween party, standing at the edge of a crowd, grinning at the camera. Beside me, a girl in a white dress, pale, barefoot, long black hair covering most of her face. I had no memory of her. No one did. I checked the comments. They were all from names I didn't know, names of the dead. "He's next. I remember the scream. She'll find you again." I threw the phone across the room. It landed screen down. Still buzzing. The next morning, I went digging. Old photos, school yearbooks. I found it. 6th grade class photo, Halloween edition. There I was, dressed as a vampire. Next to me, almost blending to the background, was a girl in a white dress. Handwritten on the back, Alyssa M. I looked her up. She was real. Alyssa Marrow. She'd gone missing on Halloween night 2014. Last seen at a school party. Never found. No leads. Parents moved away. Her Facebook page memorialized, but her page had messaged me. I visited the house from her profile photo. Abandoned. On the edge of town. Boarded up. A single wilted flower bouquet sat by the door. I stood there, staring. My phone buzzed again. No app. No signal. But still the screen lit up. A new post from Alyssa. "He remembers." That's how it begins. Attached a live video from inside the house. The camera walked down a hallway toward a mirror. My reflection stared back. That night, I dreamed of her. She stood at the foot of my bed, hair soaked, face bloated, skin pale and split in places like wet paper. She didn't speak, she just pointed to my closet. I woke up screaming. The closet door was open, and inside, carved into the back wall, was a message. "Send this to someone else, and maybe she'll stop watching." Below it, a list of names, all crossed out, except mine. I didn't go to work, didn't eat. I stayed home watching my phone. The Facebook icon slowly changed color. Grayer, wetter. She posted again. "He's running out of time." Attached was a poll. Where should he die? The options. His bed, the closet, outside the door. Hundreds of votes, more by the second, all from dead profiles. I tried logging out. It wouldn't let me. The message popped up. "This account is now permanent." I called my mom, asked her about the Halloween party, asked if she remembered Alyssa. There was a long silence on the line. Then she said, "I told you never to talk about her. That girl never left the house." "What are you talking about?" I whispered. "She was dead before you met her." Click. The line went dead. I smashed the phone, left it in the trash, got in my car, started driving, didn't know where, just away. I stopped at a gas station miles out of town. The attendant gave me a strange look. "Your phone's been ringing non-stop," he said. He held it out to me. My phone, not the smashed one, fully intact, buzzing in his hand. I backed away, but the screen lit up. New message from Alyssa. Too late. The lights flickered in the gas station. The walls began to bleed, not real blood, but thick black fluid like ink. The TVs behind the counter turned on. Every screen showed me, sleeping, crying, running, hiding. Then her. Her face now fully visible, empty eyes, mouth unhinged, too many teeth. She climbed out of the frame. I don't know where I am now. Not really. They say I've been in a coma since the night I crashed my car outside that house. They say I talk in my sleep. Say one name over and over, Alyssa. But I'm awake. I'm writing this on a wall. They don't know I'm still inside. Inside the game she made, the one you just joined, by reading this. Check your friend requests. There's one waiting for you. The ice cream van. It showed up again last night. Same as before. No music, no driver, no headlights. Just the slow crunch of tires on gravel as the white van rolled down our street long after midnight. My bedroom faces the road. I saw it from my window. There are no children here anymore. Not since what happened to Benji. And yet, the ice cream van keeps coming. We used to love that van. Mr. Eli, the driver, had been around since our parents were kids. Always wore a pink bow tie and a straw hat, handed out joke cards with every cone. But one summer evening a year ago, Benji ran out barefoot for a rocket pop. The sun was setting. Mr. Eli gave him a little salute, passed him the ice cream. Benji never came back. We searched for days. The police dragged the lake. Dogs combed the woods. They never found anything, except his shoe. It was under the van, perfectly clean. No blood, no scuffs, just sitting there like it had been placed. After that, Mr. Eli disappeared. The van, too. No one saw him leave. The truck just stopped existing, until last week. The first night it returned, I thought I was dreaming. The white van turned the corner slowly, silently, and parked across from the empty playground. The side window opened with a soft hiss. There was no one inside. No jingles played. Just a sign taped to the glass. 1 treat per customer. I stayed frozen behind the curtain, watching. No one approached it. The van sat for exactly 13 minutes. Then it drove off. On the second night, I saw Anna approaching it. She's 10, lives 2 doors down. She stood barefoot in the street in pajamas, eyes wide and unfocused like she was sleepwalking. I opened my window and shouted, but no sound came out. None. My throat worked. Air moved, but it was like the world had muted me. Anna took a popsicle from the window, unwrapped it, took a bite. Then she collapsed. No scream, no twitch, just gone. The van didn't move, just waited. Then a soft, mechanical sound. Click, like a tally being marked. Then it rolled away. Anna was gone by morning. Her house locked. Her room empty. Her parents didn't even remember her. I did. The photos were still in my camera roll, but they faded by noon, faces blurring, memories warping, like she was never real. I told my friends, but they just laughed, said I'd been reading too many creepypastas, said there never was an ice cream van on our street. But I remember the music, the smell of bubble gum, the way the wheels always left a sticky trail in the summer heat. I decided to prove it. Last night I waited with my phone. Midnight came and went. The street stayed dark, but at 1:13 a.m. the van appeared, silent as death. I filmed it, got clear footage. The van rolled in from the west end, stopped by the curb. Same window hiss, same sign, 1 treat per customer. I watched from my window, barely breathing. My phone was still recording. The van turned its headlights on, 2 solid beams of sickly yellow. The lights pointed up, toward my room, toward me. My phone buzzed. Airdrop from ice cream. My hands shook as I accepted it. The image that came through was a still from my own video, except it was zoomed in, on my window. I wasn't in the frame, but something else was. A hand, long, thin, almost skeletal, pressing up against the glass from the inside. I spun around. Nothing. But the room was cold, freezing. I could see my breath. Then came the jingle, a warped, dragging melody, like a record playing too slow. Do you want a treat tonight? Take a bite. Don't try to fight. All your friends are waiting too. In the cold, they wait for you. The lyrics didn't come from outside. They came from under my bed. I dropped the phone, ran out of the room, locked myself in the bathroom. The music followed. I stayed there until sunrise. When I came out, everything was quiet. My window was open. On the floor beneath it, a single ice cream cone. Melting, blue and red and green, the colors of a rocket pop. I tried showing the video to my parents, but my phone was empty. No file, just a new photo in my camera roll. The van. Close. Too close. Taken from right outside the front door. I never took it. Now, every night it parks a little closer. First, it was across the street. Then in front of our lawn. Then at the edge of the driveway. Last night it pulled into our garage. My parents didn't notice. No one ever does. The only message I have left is the one in my notebook. The only proof I'm not insane. If you're reading this and you hear the jingle, don't open your window. Don't accept the treat. Because you don't eat it. It eats you. The cabin on Hollow Lake. I hadn't planned on going back to the lake. Not after what happened to Jonah. But the letter changed that. It arrived without a return address, written in his familiar scrawl. Come to the cabin. Bring no one. There's something you need to see. Jonah had been missing for over a year. No body, no evidence. Just his empty truck parked outside the cabin at Hollow Lake, and a torn piece of his flannel shirt caught on the doorframe. Search parties found nothing. The woods kept their secrets. I shouldn't have gone, but I did. The road to Hollow Lake was narrower than I remembered, the trees pressing in from both sides like they were leaning closer just to listen. My phone lost signal 20 miles out. The radio died soon after. The air grew colder as I got closer. The lake came into view, a gray, glassy stretch of water surrounded by pine and mist. And at the edge, half sunken into the fog, stood the cabin. It hadn't changed, still crooked, still dark, still silent. I parked beside Jonah's rusted truck, still here, still locked. Moss now crawled up its tires. The air smelled like ash. I stepped onto the porch. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, dust and silence. Cobwebs hung like forgotten curtains. The fireplace was cold, the stone hearth blackened. Our old photos were still nailed to the wall, us fishing, drinking, laughing, before everything fell apart. A single candle sat on the table, newly melted, and on the wall above it, scratched deep into the wood, "He's not dead." My heart stuttered. I turned and found muddy footprints on the floor. Bare, human, leading to the basement. We never used the basement. It always felt wrong. Jonah said it gave him bad dreams as a kid, said he heard things moving down there at night. We kept it locked, but now the lock was gone. The door hung open like a mouth. I took the flashlight from my bag and descended the stairs. The air thickened with every step, damp, rotten, like the inside of something that had been alive a long, long time ago. The light flickered, then caught on something. Carvings, all along the stone walls, symbols, spirals, and words I didn't recognize. Some looked burned in, others gouged with fingernails. And at the center of the basement floor, in a shallow pit, a pile of Jonah's clothes, soaked in blood. But no body, only a journal, his journal. I flipped it open, pages soaked in water and rust, some torn, but one stuck out, written in shaking hand. It lives in the lake. It doesn't sleep. It called to me. I saw my reflection smile when I didn't. I thought I could fight it. I was wrong. Then, if you're reading this, it means you heard it too. I froze, and that's when I heard it, the whisper. Soft, slithering like a voice underwater, calling my name. Eli. The sound came not from the basement, but from the lake. I stumbled up the stairs and out the door. The sun was setting now, but the light didn't feel warm. The sky was the color of old bruises. Clouds hung low, pressing the forest down into silence. I turned toward the lake. It shimmered, perfectly still. No ripples, no wind, but I saw movement just beneath the surface, something long, coiling, pale. The voice came again, clearer. Eli, he's not gone. He's waiting. And then I saw him, Jonah, standing waist-deep in the lake, eyes wide, skin gray-blue and slick with water. His mouth was open like he was screaming, but no sound came out. I stepped forward. He raised one hand and pointed behind me. I turned. The cabin windows were no longer dark. They were glowing, red, pulsing, like veins beneath skin. The front door slammed shut, and from inside I heard footsteps. Not one person. Many, too many, moving in rhythm, bare feet slapping against the floor. I ran, not to the car, but to the dock, toward Jonah. The lake welcomed me with unnatural warmth, pulling at my legs like it was glad I'd come. He stood still as I approached, but up close his skin wasn't just wet, it was transparent. Veins like roots. Eyes full of black water. Jonah, I whispered, his mouth opened, and from inside came her voice. Not his, a woman's voice. Ancient, hollow. You followed the call, just like he did. Just like they all do. Jonah collapsed. The lake took him, pulled him under without a splash. The water smoothed over, glassy again. The dock behind me creaked. Something stepped onto it. Many somethings. I turned. Figures emerged from the forest, dripping, bloated, smiling. Some I recognized, faces from town, from school, from missing posters years old. Others were strangers, all of them walking into the lake, eyes locked on me. As they entered the water, it began to boil. A shape rose beneath them, massive, impossible. A body of black tendrils and broken faces, rising from the depths like a memory forgotten by time. The lake wasn't a lake, it was a mouth, and it was hungry. I screamed, ran. Back to the cabin, the door opened for me this time. I locked it behind me, but I know it won't hold, not forever. It's quiet now, but the water's rising beneath the floorboards. And in every reflection, mirror, window, glass, I see Jonah, smiling, waiting. Scratching one final message on the walls, you never leave the lake. After the bell. It started as a dare, stay in the school overnight, just one night. No phones, no lights, no leaving. Jacob, Leah, and I all agreed, half out of boredom, half because we didn't believe the stories. You know the ones. That the school was built over some asylum. That room 309 had no door handle because someone hanged themselves inside. That if you heard footsteps after midnight, you were already being followed. Kids always come up with stuff like that. But some stories stick because there's truth in them. And sometimes the truth waits until you're alone. We slipped in through the back window by the gym around 9 p.m., flashlights in our bags, snacks stuffed in our hoodies. The place felt different at night. Too big, too empty. Lockers lined the halls like crooked teeth, and the silence had weight. The custodians were long gone. Cameras weren't a problem. They'd been busted since spring break, and the school hadn't bothered fixing them. We set up camp in the library. Candles, cards, snacks. We laughed too loud and too long, like we had to fill the space with noise to keep the building from noticing us. At 11:42 p.m., we heard the first sound. A locker slamming shut, hard, echoing through the west hallway. We froze. Probably the air pressure, Jacob said. Old buildings shift. Leah didn't look convinced. That sounded like it was slammed by someone. I wanted to agree, but I forced a smile. Let's go check, because that's what you do in stories like this. You check. The West Hall was cold, colder than the rest of the school. Our breath fogged in the beam of my flashlight. Locker 112 was slightly ajar. Leah pointed to it. Wasn't that one already broken? Jacob reached out and yanked it open. Inside was a single note, yellowed and curled. He read aloud, "Leave before the bell rings." We laughed it off. Kids messing around, some leftover prank. But the hallway felt tighter, the air thicker, like the school had started breathing. We went back to the library. The candles had all gone out. Melted wax pooled on the floor in strange patterns, swirls, symbols. And our stuff? Gone. No flashlights, no bags, just gone. Jacob spun around. Who the hell took our stuff? No one else is here, Leah whispered. But even as she said it, we all knew that wasn't true anymore. At 12:07 a.m., the intercom crackled to life. The speakers had been silent for years, but now a voice spoke, dry, low, like leaves scraping pavement. Attendance check, then silence, then 3 present, 2 expected. A long, shrill tone followed, like the end of a school announcement, but it didn't stop. It grew sharper, piercing. We covered our ears and ran from the library, down the hall, past classrooms, past stairwells that seemed to stretch down far too deep. We stopped at the auditorium doors, panting. Jacob looked at us. 2 expected? What the hell does that mean? I didn't answer. Because behind him, the hallway lights were turning off, one by one, coming closer. I grabbed the handle and pulled. The auditorium was worse. The stage lights were on, and in the center, a desk with 2 chairs, both occupied. Leah gasped. They were us, copies, wax-like, unmoving, staring forward with blank, glassy eyes. A note lay on the desk. Makeup exam in progress. Late arrivals will be punished. Suddenly, the lights cut out. We screamed. When they came back on a second later, the desk was empty, but footsteps echoed above us from the catwalk. Heavy, wet. We bolted out the side door into the stairwell. Jacob tripped. I turned back, grabbed his arm. He was staring down the stairwell. I think there's something in the basement. No, I said. We go up to the roof. Signal someone. He hesitated, then nodded. We climbed. The roof access door was locked, but there was another note taped to it, handwritten in red ink. You can't leave until the final bell. We turned around. At the end of the hallway stood a figure, dressed in the old gym coach's uniform. Mr. Ellis, who died 5 years ago of a heart attack. But this wasn't Ellis. His face was wrong. Too long. His eyes were hollow. His skin looked peeled and reattached. He blew a whistle. The sound made my teeth hurt. Then he ran, straight at us. We screamed and fled back down the stairs, the whistle still shrieking, bouncing off every wall. We made it to the second floor, dove into the science lab, slammed the door. Silence, until the intercom buzzed again. 2 present, 1 taken, 1 expected. I turned. Jacob was gone, just gone. Leah backed into the corner. We need to get out. We need to get out now. But there were no windows, no more exits. The door handle turned, once, twice, stopped. Then a paper slid under the door. I picked it up. Time's almost up. We found ourselves back at the library, only now it was different. All the shelves were knocked over, books strewn across the floor. The windows were black. Not dark. Black they'd been painted over from the outside, and in the middle of the room was a school desk. Just one, with a single piece of paper on it. A test. My name at the top. Every question was a memory, a moment from my life. Where did you leave Jacob? Why didn't you stop the dare? Who was waiting behind you? I didn't turn around. I wrote, I don't know. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. The bell rang, but it wasn't a real bell. It was more like a scream made of metal and blood. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was standing outside the school. Morning. Birds, cars, people, police tape across the gym entrance. They said they found Leah's phone inside. Playing a voice memo on loop. 3 present, 2 expected. They never found Jacob. They said we imagined it, said we made it up. But sometimes walking past that hallway, I hear the bell again. And once in a locked classroom, I saw a desk, a test paper with my name still written at the top and a new note underneath. Final period starts soon. The second me. The first time I saw him, I thought it was a mirror. It was late, nearly midnight, and I was walking home from my night shift at the gas station. The street was empty. The sky hung low with clouds, and the street lamps buzzed in and out like they were trying to hold their breath. My apartment was just 3 blocks away, but always cut through the alley behind the pharmacy. It was faster, and I didn't mind the dark. That night, halfway through the alley, I stopped, because someone was standing at the other end, someone wearing my clothes, someone with my face. He tilted his head at the same time I did, raised a hand. I did too. But it wasn't a reflection. There was no glass between us, just space and silence. He smiled, and then turned, walked away, and vanished around the corner. I didn't sleep that night. The next day at work, things felt wrong. My boss, Carver, gave me a weird look when I came in, said, "Didn't expect you back already." "What do you mean?" I asked. "You were just here. 10 minutes ago you looked like hell." I hadn't been. I'd just woken up. I checked the security footage when Carver went to smoke. Sure enough, there I was, walking into the store, pale and twitchy, grabbing a Red Bull and walking right back out without saying a word. I played the clip 5 times. It was me. Same scar under my eye, same lopsided walk from an old knee injury. But it wasn't me. That night, he came to my apartment. I heard the knock at 2:13 a.m. Soft, rhythmic. I peered through the peephole. He stood on the other side, smiling, calm, wearing my hoodie, my jeans. I didn't open the door. Instead, I backed away and called the police. But when they arrived 20 minutes later, there was no one outside. And now, they think I'm the crazy one. Over the next week, he showed up everywhere, at the cafe where I sometimes grabbed coffee, the bar I used to visit after work, even at the park where I jogged, always just out of reach, always staring. One time he waved, I flipped him off. He smiled wider. Later that night, I found a note slid under my door, scrawled in my own handwriting, "You're getting tired, let me help." I burned it. Things started disappearing. My favorite hoodie, a framed photo of me and my sister, my spare keys, gone. Then came the texts, from numbers I didn't recognize. "Nice to see you again today. You should really smile more. You look better when I do it. She likes me more than you." I stopped leaving the apartment. I stopped sleeping. I even caught my reflection moving wrong once, too slow, too deliberate. It stared at me a second longer than it should have. I covered every mirror in the house. A week later, Carver fired me. Said I'd cursed at customers, slept behind the counter, stolen cash. I tried to protest, but he wasn't hearing it. "You need help, man, whatever you're dealing with. It's getting worse." When I got home, my key didn't work. The landlord claimed I already picked up a spare the day before, said I was there, in person, had a conversation. I broke in through the fire escape and nearly had a heart attack. He was inside, sitting on my couch eating chips, watching TV. He turned slowly and grinned. "Finally," he said in my voice. I backed away. "Get out," I said. "I live here." He replied. He stood, mirrored my movements exactly. "I've been watching, learning. You don't deserve this life." He took a step forward. I ran. No one believed me. Not the police, not my sister. When I went to her house to explain, she hugged me at the door and said, "You just left 5 minutes ago." She thought it was a joke, said I was acting weird, said I should rest. I saw him in the mirror above her fireplace, watching me, smiling. I left without saying goodbye. I started sleeping in motels, cheap ones, dirty ones, moving every night. But he always found me. I'd see myself in reflections, flickering TVs, elevator doors, smiling, waiting. Then came the headaches, the nosebleeds, the dreams where I woke up inside his life, behind the gas station counter, laughing with my sister, lying in my bed. In the dreams, he looked happier, better, more alive, like he belonged, like I didn't. Last night, I found a video on my phone. I didn't record it. It showed me tied to a chair in my apartment, eyes wide, mouth gagged, panic in every breath. Then the camera turned, and he was holding it. He winked, said, "Almost done," and smiled. I'm writing this from a payphone booth outside the city. I've got nothing left, no job, no ID, no one who believes me. But I know this. He's not human. He's not me. He's something else. Something that wears skin like clothing and watches from cracks in reality. And he wants my life. If you see someone who looks like you, run. Don't smile back. Don't speak. Because once you acknowledge him, he starts becoming real. The field that never ends. The town of Marrow's End had one rule. Don't cross the fence behind the old grain silos. Everyone knew it. It wasn't written on signs or posted online. It was passed on in whispers. Grandmothers warning restless children, drunk teenagers daring each other then backing down at the last second. No one really remembered why, but everyone obeyed. Except me. It was supposed to be a short hike, a way to clear my head after my brother Luke's funeral. He died in a car accident, quick, sudden, and cruel. He was only 25. And the night before the crash, he left me a voicemail. "I saw something," he said. His voice hushed. "In the field past the silos. I went too far, Jules. I don't think I came back right." I thought he was being dramatic. Luke had always been obsessed with local legends. He used to talk about the endless field like it was a real place. Now, I wasn't so sure. The silos rose like giant tombstones on the edge of town. Behind them, a rusted wire fence stretched across a patch of wild, overgrown grass. No lock, no signs, just the thin hum of wind whispering through dead stalks. I stepped over and walked in. The field spread wide in every direction, a sea of golden brown and dying green. Patches of corn, long abandoned, swayed in slow motion. There was no path, just wild rows and a narrowing horizon. At first, I felt silly. Then I looked behind me. The fence was gone, so were the silos, so was everything. Only the field remained. I turned around 3 times, picked a direction, and walked fast. The sun hung directly overhead, but it never moved. I checked my phone, no service, no time. The clock was frozen at 12 p.m. I kept walking. The air grew still, too still. No insects, no birds. The stalks rustled, but there was no wind. That's when I saw the scarecrow. It stood crooked in the middle of a clearing. Straw arms, canvas sack for a head, a stitched smile far too wide, one glass eye. I didn't remember passing it before, and I was sure I'd been walking in a straight line. I moved around it carefully, trying not to look into its face. But something brushed my arm. I spun. The scarecrow hadn't moved, but now there were 2. The second one had a different shirt. Red plaid, just like Luke's. I ran. The field didn't change. No hills. No trees, no sign of anything. Just endless stalks pressing closer, rising taller, bending in strange directions. Then came the whispers. At first, breathy, then louder. Voices I knew, voices I'd buried, my mother's lullaby, Luke's laugh, my own voice, screaming. I tried to cover my ears, but it didn't help. The voices were inside me, worming through my skull like roots. I fell to my knees. When I looked up, there was a third scarecrow, closer. Its face looked just like mine. Its smile was sewn shut. I walked for what felt like hours. Sometimes the field would open into clearings, always circular, always empty, except for more scarecrows. Each one closer, each one more familiar. I screamed, tore through stalks, climbed over furrows of earth. I marked the ground with rocks, bits of my shirt, my own blood when I cut my hand. But the marks would disappear when I turned back. The field didn't want me to leave. It wanted me to forget. I forced myself to remember my name, my brother, the feel of rain, the sound of the car crash, the voicemail. I don't think I came back right. Eventually, I found a shack, wooden, half collapsed, hiding behind the thickest wall of corn I'd ever seen. Inside was dark and wet, a single lantern hung from a nail, still burning, and carved into the wall dozens of names, some I recognized. Luke, Dad, me. Under my name, someone had scratched. One way in, one way out. The floor creaked beneath my feet. I looked down. The boards were soft, something was moving beneath them. I ran out. The scarecrows were waiting, now 10 of them, forming a circle, no longer still. Their heads turned as I passed, tracking me, smiling. One raised a hand and waved. I screamed, I begged, I ran until my legs gave out and my throat burned. Then I fell, not onto dirt, but onto a road. The sun was setting. Behind me, the field swayed gently, peacefully. The scarecrows were gone. Ahead, the silhouette of the silos. I had made it out, or so I thought. I stumbled home. Everything looked normal, but people stared at me. My mother didn't recognize me. My childhood bedroom was empty. My phone had a passcode I didn't remember setting. And on the news that night, they found a body in the field, buried beneath the shack, rotten, unrecognizable, clutching a phone with a cracked screen. One voicemail saved. Mine. I don't think I came back right. And now, I don't sleep, because every time I close my eyes, I'm back in the field. The scarecrows wait patiently, and one of them looks more like me every day. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed that, make sure you're subscribed, and let us know what time and place you're watching from. Stay aware, and don't trust the scarecrow that waves back.